Over the course of the 2018 Verizon IndyCar season, Scott Dixon has been helping rewrite the series history books. And with a sizable points lead with 4 races remaining, an historic 5th championship appears to be within reach. But Dixon's rivals are intent on him not reaching that mark just yet. Alexander Rossi coming off a dominant win at the last race in Mid-Ohio. The defending series champion Joseph Newgarden, whose passes in recent races have shown he's not willing to give up the #1. And the current 500-mile specialist Will Power, winner of this year's Indy 500, as well as the past 2 races here at Pocono. This is the track they call the Tricky Triangle because each of the 3 turns can ruin a racer's day. And there's little rest on a front stretch big enough to race 7 wide. 500 miles from now, Scott Dixon will either take one more step toward history or the triangle could tighten the race for the championship. Of the 17-event 2018 Verizon IndyCar Series, this is the ABC Supply 500 here on your home of motorsport, ready to go at Pocono Raceway. But before we do, let's head trackside for the command.
Race fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Here to give the command from Camden, New Jersey, please welcome ABC Supply Managing Partner, Joe Cox.
Good afternoon, fans. Welcome to the ABC Pocono 500. Drivers, start your engines.
Again, one of the things that everybody is talking about up and down pit lane is the lack of on-track time after last evening's final practice session was washed out due to rain. So track time is at a minimum at the moment. 7 different winners so far this season. The all-time IndyCar record is 11. So with 4 races left, that is possible to at least equal that record. Let's head down to pit lane. We start with Kevin Lee. Kevo?
Well, Diff, if we start to talk about who might become our 8th different winner, this guy in this cool-looking shell car today, Simon Pagenaud, might be the biggest surprise that he hasn't won. Won the championship 2 years ago, almost won it last year. They have struggled on road and street courses, but not on ovals. Simon Pagenaud, starting 5th, has a good chance to win today, Jan.
And talk about a good chance. It's actually possible that Zach Beach, as a rookie, could pull off a first-time victory as well. As a rookie, he got the test here a week ago. He was the fastest car in overall practice, the only practice that car had. And Katie, he is coming off 2 consecutive top 10 finishes.
Yeah, no attack, no chance. That's always been the mantra for Takuma Sato, and last year he was on the attack when he scored the pole in qualifying, but this year he's with a new team, and in the words of his own teammate Graham Rahal, Takuma was amazingly brave to put such a loose car in the top 10 to start today, but there's lots of questions heading into the race. Such a lack of practice and such a loose car, but I expect Takuma to be all attack for every chance today, Robin.
All right. Tony Kanaan's led every race they've run here the last 5 years. He hadn't won a race in a while. AJ Foyt hadn't won a race since 2014. ABC Supply is the title sponsor. Kanaan was one of the fastest cars at Indy, got a flat tire. One of the fastest cars at Texas, grazed the wall. He's been fast here. He's starting 14th, which is ironically AJ Foyt's car number. And I talked to Foyt this morning. He's healing from his surgery and back surgery. He's not going to be any more races this year, but he gave me permission to do 2 things. Scream at the crew if they have a bad pit stop and throw the computer if I feel like it. All right, Lee.
And on behalf of all of us here at Pocono Raceway, AJ, we wish you a speedy recovery. Time to take a closer look at this 2.5-mile super speedway. Townsend, take us away.
Well, Pocono is certainly unique. Down at turn 1, really no other corner on the schedule like it, 64 feet wide, based on Trenton's old corner. There you see an old roadster ripping through old Trenton, and then turn 2, Paul, really tricky because it's bumpier than ever this year.
Yeah, that's where the tunnel goes under the track to get in and out. Big bump right in the center of the corner right there. And then you get to turn 3, which is just down the road from that corner. Turn 3 super flat, but it's kind of like Milwaukee.
It is just like Milwaukee. It was modeled after Milwaukee, and we're going to be watching turn 3 as we see a good shot of Helio Castroneves few years ago working Milwaukee. We're going to be watching this turn because this is where Will Power was so genius last year in blocking Joseph Newgarden, and it comes to this long, wide front stretch, longer than Indianapolis, way wider, almost twice as wide as Indianapolis. And we're going to go off, guys, 11 rows of 2, but we could easily see 2 rows of 11 going into turn 1.
It was 7 in previous years. Unbelievable, and yes, you will see more of that today. Yes, what turn 4? There is no turn 4. You don't need it. We just need 3, and modeled off those famous racetracks at Trenton in New Jersey, turn 2 Indianapolis, and turn 3 Milwaukee. If you weren't with us for IndyCar Live, the pre-race show, Will Power yesterday scored his 53rd career pole position. That ties AJ Foyt for 2nd on the all-time list. Amazing.
It's an all-Chevy front row, but back on row 2, you've got 2 Andretti Honda teammates. And these Hondas, a lot of the teams feel like Honda's getting a little better mileage right now. Chevy might have the horsepower, so that'll be interesting to watch with Rossi and Hunter-Reay side by side.
A lot of combinations with the aero. Penske, Pagano, a little bit further back from his teammates. He felt really good when he got out of the car, but a little bit disappointed by the end. But watch out for this guy, Robert Wickens. He will be on the move.
Zach Veach there, great qualifying effort from the young American rookie, and Sebastian Bourdais did a terrific job as well, bringing his Dale Coyne car up onto row 4.
Best career qualifying effort from Zach Veach. Then we pick up James Hinchcliffe and Takuma Sato on the 5th row. Hinch was really in the mix here last year until a little bit of a hiccup on pit lane where he overshot his box, and that kind of spoiled his chances. Expect to see the 5 in there again today.
Marco Andretti, the hometown guy, winner of the What You Cooking Today.
20 out of 20.
20 out of 20, and then Ed Jones, pretty solid effort for him. So he's really looking to get a kickstart here, get a good result.
Looking back at row 7, a lot to watch here as Scott Dixon, the points leader, was going to try to make up for a very challenging, uncharacteristically mediocre qualifying effort. Not that confident with the car. Tony Kanaan should be on a tear as well.
And then the teammates from Ed Carpenter Racing, Ed himself and Spencer Pickett. It's Spencer's very first IndyCar race here at Pocono.
Graham Rahal coming from the back. I eyeballed his car. He's got less downforce than anybody out there.
Chilton and Conor Daly, Conor's 3rd race for Harding Racing. We wish him well. They had very little track time. As we show you, where we'll take you through the cars, and this is Graham Rahal, thanks to the Bobby Rahal Automotive Group. That's what his onboard looks like. And then there is Tony Kanaan, and Tony aboard the ABC Supply Chevrolet. Here is his old Ganassi teammate, Scott Dixon, with the PNC Bank View. Remember, the championship leader coming from 13th. That is not ideal. That is mid-pack. We'll see how he can negotiate his way out of that. And then the Lucas Oil on board with James Hinchcliffe. We'll see plenty of good stuff out of Hinch and the Group 1001 onboard view. That's the nose cone camera for Zach Veach. And Ryan Hunter-Reay. Thanks to Verizon, we'll see Captain America hard at work at a track that he really enjoys. All right, so it's an all Penske front row, the same as it was in Iowa, but neither of those drivers went to victory lane there. That was James Hinchcliffe. How's it all going to work out over 500 miles? We're about to find out. 4 races to go in the championship. Somebody hit the wall. Spencer Pickett spins.
That was Graham Rahal, I think, on the outside, got into the wall. Pickett gets turned around.
I got a feeling Pickett lost it under power and Graham was avoiding what I saw, but it was a pretty slow start. Cold day, tire spin, got a front wing broken on Graham. Doesn't look like any suspension damage.
Remember the last race, guys, at Mid-Ohio, Alexander Rossi absolutely jumped the start, caught everybody off guard. I think everybody was way more anxious this time, did not want to get caught out, and obviously they did in a different way this time.
I'm surprised the back wing isn't broken up, but let's take a look here. Let's got Graham right behind Pickett. Oh, he just ran over the back of him and knocked him around.
Absolutely.
So he mistimed that, was going to try to get a good jump and hit the back of Pickett, but that was a really, really slow start, it looked like.
This is what it looked like from Graham Rahal's point of view.
You ready? You ready? Ready?
Well, you
get ready. Green close. Green, 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 green.
You can hear the spotter was just saying, stay ready, 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 and Graham was flat gassed it.
Yeah, he was going and nobody was going yet. It was like...
And that is a product of a frustrating qualifying session and Graham trying to make up ground early.
Remember at Long Beach earlier this year, you had Graham getting the back at Simon Pagenaud on the start. So we'll have to see how race control addresses it, if at all.
For sure, that's going to be an avoidable contact penalty, and he's going to have to fix that car.
So day done for young Spencer Pickett. So he's yet to start a Verizon IndyCar Series race here. We'll update you on Rahal when we come back. You're watching NBCSN's coverage of IndyCar, brought to you by United Rentals, official equipment rental services provider of IndyCar and proud sponsor of Graham Rahal. And by Honda, an official vehicle of the Verizon IndyCar Series. Back at Pocono and still under caution as the field was coming to green. An accident between Graham Rahal and Spencer Pickett sees the Ed Carpenter Racing driver out. Graham Rahal still on track with a wounded Bobby Rahal Automotive Group car, and we're yet to get to the bottom of this one. So anyway, no doubt that it was due to a frustrating qualifying yesterday. Graham trying to make up positions. As a reminder, NASCAR pays tribute to 7 decades of racing and the legends that made those years special. Don't miss the Southern 500 at Darlington, and that is September 2nd, right here on NBC. So, hey fellas, that race at Bristol last night was something special. We say congratulations to Kurt Busch, breaking a long winless drought all the way back to the Daytona 500 last year.
Terrific run, nice to see. He's been strong all season, been threatening all season, and it couldn't come at a better time for Kurt Busch as we see the wounded and retired car of Spencer Pickett. Really a shame, Paul. Nothing he could do.
Yeah, he wasn't very happy. He wasn't very happy either. He heard some chatter that he was not happy with how the start was led up. When we take a look at it here, it was a pretty slow start here, and Graham was just I'm looking at Kanana side by side with Ed, and it's just the back is messy because nobody's going. Marco's way up on where he should have been, and it's just I think guys were just expecting the field to go a lot earlier, and Power wasn't ready to let it go yet.
Ready? They'll get ready. Green.
Yeah, I think Graham just totally misread the acceleration of the group, thinking that was the go moment, even though the spotter was still staying
well, you got to look at this. The start marker is right here, so you know he was waiting for that area to go, and he didn't want to start it way in the back there and have guys get a big run on him. So he left it all the way down to where the start cones are. And that's his prerogative to do.
Pits are open.
You have to see if the damage is just limited to the nose and wing. Hopefully for Graham, he can do that. Whether or not there'll be a penalty issued is still TBD, as you see significant damage to the rear tire of Pickett.
Tell you what, he hit the wall pretty hard on the outside on the front tire when he was avoiding Pickett. Kind of careened off of his back tire, broke the front wing. He hit his front wheel on the back of Pickett's car and then hit the outside wall. So it's going to be amazed if the toe's not out in that car. But we missed a good opportunity for a side-by-side start.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be single file start.
You know who's loving that? Will Power.
Will Power, big time. So you heard the call, pits are open, and we're yet to hear anything from race control in regards to Graham Rahal, but I'm sure some news will be coming here shortly. In behind Graham Rahal, by the way, is the Harding Racing entry of Conor Daly. We want to wish Conor well because he's competing next weekend at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin for Roush Fenway Racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. He makes his first start alongside Ryan Reed, a fellow diabetic, raising awareness of diabetes and how to try and prevent diabetes. So, you know, you've got Charlie Kimball, Ryan Reed, Conor Daly. So wishing Conor all the best. He's very excited about that. Let's head to pit road. Here's Jan.
Well, you see multiple cars coming down pit lane. Of course, Graham Rahal is going to need repairs. Where you see some of these other cars like Ed Carpenter, Conor Daly, looks also like one of the Carlin entries as well. This is just a top up on fuel for strategy. But obviously for Graham Rahal, they're going to have to look very carefully at the outside. Paul, you mentioned it. He definitely made contact, at least with the front, possibly with the rear. Now, when you're changing this front wing, the nose cone has a tether, so he'll have to reach inside and disconnect the tether before they can reconnect the new nose. And in fact, by the body language of the outside front, it does look like
something's going wrong with that tire. You can't get it off.
Yeah, he's hit that outside spindle on the wall. Probably it's mushroomed. Yeah, mushroomed. Let's see, the nut won't come off, so he could have damaged the spindle. See, now they're having to hammer the nut off of the wheel, old school 70s style. So they can't get that nut, the gun on the nut because it's been hit up against the wall. You can see right here where they're pounding on the nut right there.
So just compounding things for Graham Rahal. Meanwhile, the field is coming to green, and it is Will Power, Alexander Rossi, Joseph Newgarden, and finally we see green here at Pocono. Look at Rossi on the inside. Does he get a run? Conor Daly pops out at the back. So too that yellow and red DHL car of Ryan Hunter-Reay. Alexander Rossi to the lead.
Filed in right with his teammate there. RHR splits the Penske's, and look at Wickens on the outside making a move.
Here comes the red machine, the Lucas Oil entry of Canada's Robert Wickens.
Oh, that's going to be tight through there.
Oh,
Early touch. Oh, my God.
Oh! That's Robert Wickens. And his teammate is into him as well, James Hinchcliffe. That was ugly. That was frightening.
Big, big impact.
That was a very scary accident.
There is Pietro Fittipaldi. James Hinchcliffe was involved. Robert Wickens. Ryan Hunter-Reay. There is James Hinchcliffe.
James breathing heavy. RHR is fine. He's moving around. We'll get out, looks like. But the question mark.
Your left rear.
And the AMR safety team are right there with Robert Wickens on the right-hand side of your screen. More assistance coming for James Hinchcliffe. Oh boy. And you heard Ryan Hunter-Reay radio to say what happened. And there was connection between Wickens and the left rear of Hunter-Reay that sent Ryan around, and then Wickens obviously went up into the fence.
Well, and turn 2 is really a flat-out kink, and at the start of the race, cold tires. I'm sure Hunter-Reay didn't want to be any higher than he had to be with a car down low, going through that kink.
We're going to have a red flag here for sure. The fence is massively damaged in the back here. There's a big gaping hole in the fence back there, so we're going to be down for quite a while to repair that.
And those are both Schmidt-Peterson teammates that the safety crew is working on and assisting. Don't really have a good camera angle on the 6 of Robert Wickens, as we see, Paul, as you pointed out. Massive damage to the fence. You'd never like to see an IndyCar get up over that safer barrier into the cheese grater, or the chain link.
There is James Hinchcliffe gingerly climbing from his Schmidt-Peterson Honda.
Definitely looks like he's hurt himself, his wrists or something. Both wrists maybe, because he's holding him at a kind of a strange angle there.
Pietro Fittipaldi, there's a guy that didn't need any impact with the wall, coming back from injury after a nasty accident and broken legs at Spa in the WEC race. Came back aggressively at Mid-Ohio, maybe a little too soon, and now I'm sure still in a little bit of pain from previous injuries he's trying to heal from. This has been an unforgiving start to a 500-mile race.
Most certainly has. And just a strange weekend all round, and now finally and officially the red flag is shown with the washout of practice last night. Very limited track time. The strange initial start with the contact between Rahal and Pickett, and now there's a very confronting accident between Robert Wickens and Ryan Hunter-Reay and so many others involved. So you see in the blue shirt there, Jan Beekers. To the left of Jan is our Robin Miller. So we've got it covered. We're waiting there for some information, and all of the print and internet journalists there as well. Here comes Kurt Cavan.
Kurt Cavan, Vice President of Communications for IndyCar. Do you have a statement?
I do. Part of the issue is that we had 5 drivers in here in the medical center in the aftermath of that crash. Robert Wickens was awake and alert when he came here, and is being transported to Lehigh Valley Cedar Crest Hospital in Allentown for evaluations. We'll have more updates later, so that's where we stand.
How about the injuries of the other drivers? You said being 5 drivers being there, Pietro Fittipaldi, James Hinchcliffe.
2 of them, as you know, have already come out of the medical center. The other 2, it was a situation of x-ray backlog. They'll be out soon, I believe. We're looking at Hinch and Pietro Fittipaldi still to come to you.
All right, well, that's fantastic news from Kurt Cavan, again, VP of Communications for IndyCar.
And yes, just like you folks at home, we breathe a collective sigh to hear that Robert Wickens was awake and alert while being transported to Lehigh Valley Hospital. So a relief.
I think looking at the Andretti drivers that are clustered, you could see Mario Andretti kind of with the fist pump. So I think he was getting the same news, and we just heard some applause from the crowd. And Paul, for you and I, we've been through this before. That is an incredible relief and weight off the shoulders for sure.
That was the longest 45 minutes. I think any of us, race teams, all the people involved here, fans, have ever waited for, and that's tremendous news that he's going to be okay. And we'll go back to racing. It's going to take a while, but we're here, and let's do this.
Yeah, let's do it, and we will give you updates too as time goes on as to the progress of the fence repair. And look, they are making progress. Like I said before, all hands on deck. Alexander Rossi with that aggressive move early on to put himself in the lead before the stoppage. Will he take off on this field and win another 500-mile race, which will help in his quest to become an IndyCar champion? He's 46 points behind Scott Dixon coming into this weekend. Right now, based on positions as is before we restart, he's only 21. This is going to get good with, after today, 3 races left. Next week, Gateway in St. Louis at a 1.25 mile oval. That'll be the final oval of the year. Then off to the Pacific Northwest. We know there's so many people excited in that region of the country to see IndyCar racing again. And then there will be a week's break, and then the season finale at Sonoma Raceway in Wine Country, California.
Title says their current standings really position as they sit right now on the track. That is Alexander Rossi all down through the field. Conor Daly in 13th, Max Chilton 15th, the first car without any major issues. Graham Rahal will be 1 lap down. One of the things I'm curious to see, Paul, we were on the grid earlier looking at the front wing settings for a lot of the teams. Power looked to be one of the more trimmed out cars, along with Newgard, a little less downforce. Rossi and Hunter-Reay and the Andretti teammates running a little more, along with Scott Dixon. Now you've got Rossi in the front with a little more downforce. How does that affect the 12 car here, as you see the right-hand side front winglet missing that big infill panel? So a lot less downforce on the front wing of the 12 of Will Power.
The other guys that I noticed that seemed to be more trimmed out than Dixon and Rossi was Kanan. Had less wing angle and less rear wing angle, but had those full wickers, but less overall angle. Now we know, talking to some engineers, there's a point of diminishing return. You start cranking up wing angle, and the front wing just wants to stall. It's ineffective anymore. So it's really sensitive in a sweet spot.
Race control informs us that there will be 4 laps turn around Pocono Raceway before we see green. And isn't this a nice sight and a nice sound? Cars fired and running. Much to the delight of these loyal and hardy IndyCar fans here in the Poconos. So, quick break, and then we'll get ready to go racing. Cars on track here at the Tricky Triangle, ready to get this ABC Supply 500 restarted yet again. With just 4 races remaining on the season, 4 very different tracks: Pocono, St. Louis, and then Portland and Sonoma. So as they complete these lead-up laps, of course, the field restarts minus Robert Wickens, James Hinchcliffe, Takuma Sato, Ryan Hunter-Ray, and Pietro Fittipaldi. It's this man here, Alexander Rossi, trying to catch and defeat Scott Dixon in the chase for this 2018 Verizon IndyCar Series Championship. Thanks for staying with us. I know it's been an extended afternoon. Lee Diffie, Townsend Bell, Paul Tracy, Katie Hargett, Kevin Lee, Robin Miller, and Jan Beekes, the team here. And there is the fence repair that everybody worked so hard on, that Sebastian Bourdais was not too pleased about, as Simon Pagenaud, Dixon, Ed Jones, and a group of drivers, Charlie Kimball and Conor Daly, dive to the pits.
Well, we already got some guys working on fuel mileage and strategy. We've got Graham Rahal serving his penalty in there for changing that upright. He's going to get a 2-lap penalty.
This is something we weren't expecting. This is either some change or repair to the steering arm, looks like on the right front of Simon Pagenaud. So perhaps he took a hit on the debris.
Well, hopefully he doesn't lose a lap. I hope they're glad that it takes quite a bit of time to get around this 2.5-mile track, and we're going to have now 3 laps left of pace car. They went for 4 laps, and more damage here. We got some front wing damage or
left front damage.
Left front. So a lot of guys with collateral damage, and Pickett, after his first lap deal, as he comes back out.
So they had lots of time to look over the cars, the mechanics did, and clearly taking this opportunity after the red flag. You see the Penske guys hard at work threading the steering arm back into the right front of Pagenaud.
These guys will have had lots of time to prep this and have it all planned out, preset where they need to thread it into, how far, so everything's towed correctly. So that's the way that these guys operate.
Yeah, and potentially even practice on a backup car.
By the way, Spencer Pickett gets the same treatment, meaning the same penalty as Graham Rahal for unapproved work during a red on his car, but he was already so many laps down. But they will get this Fuzzy's Vodka Chevrolet back out on track anyway, because Spencer has never competed in a Verizon IndyCar Series race on this track. So he made it back out, and he's going to get some laps and some valuable experience here on this 2.5-mile super speedway.
Might be something to look at in the rules for next year as you see Simon Pagenaud coming out, is that if you're the victim of avoidable contact, meaning another driver's given a penalty, maybe you ought to be allowed to repair your car.
Kind of some
if a red flag, yeah, I mean, some kind, talk about adding insult to injury for Spencer Pickett, but nonetheless he's back out despite being 10 laps down, as Alexander Rossi starts to warm the tires and think about how he's going to treat the restart here at Pocono.
I think there's going to be a thrilling exchange too between the Penske teammates sitting second and third, Will Power, Joseph Newgarden, the guys who finished first, second last year, because they are both championship contenders. Newgarden is higher in the championship than Will. He's third. Power is fourth. But there aren't too many points between them. There's only about 18 points between them. So it's going to be a pretty spirited fight between a couple of the captain's guys. Zach Veach, what can the 23-year-old from Ohio do? He's had a really good weekend here.
Sitting fourth right now, so this is a great position for him to be in and just sit and ride and learn. You've got 2 series champions in front of him and his team leaders, so great opportunity for Veach to get a good result here if he keeps it clean. Warming the tires up.
So the first 2 guys were the first 2 guys at Mid-Ohio 3 weeks ago to get things going at the initial start. This is the restart after such a lengthy period, nearly 2 hours under red flag. Finally, the field is assembled and ready to go racing here in Pocono. We've been waiting a long time, so let's go to work.
So much for taking it easy, Veach. He's 3 wide. Down the inside, he's going to be going for second place.
Look at this, Zach Veach on Joseph Newgarden, tucks back in behind Sebastian Bourdais and Marco Andretti. And I think there will be some very respectful driving that we will see until they get in the groove and get up to speed, so to speak.
Not going to take them very long, Lee, to get in the groove as Marco Andretti worked the high side of Sebastian Bourdais coming out of 2. And look at all of the oil dry. That'll clear up pretty quickly, but the first lap, that's an eye-opener if you're behind Alexander Rossi.
Ed Jones on Max Chilton.
Didn't take him long to feel out that suspension change. Toe damage damage on the front. New toe link on his car. He's moved up a couple position. Here comes Graham Rahal to serve his penalty, which is probably going to cost. He's going to get a 2-lap hold there.
And unfortunately, that's kind of been the theme for Graham this weekend. It's been a tough weekend here in Pocono for the driver of the Rahal Letterman Lanigan Honda. On board, Scott Dixon.
Nice run here. Mateus Lace smartly lets him through, which is what you're going to do when a guy has a run on you. Pagano now going to take a look into turn 3, try to set up a pass on the long front straightaway with Conor Daly right behind Pagano.
This is really the first chance for this entire field to get an accurate read on how the cars will handle in traffic. They had an hour practice yesterday, but you never get the same read as you do when you're actually racing, where the balance goes, how you need to adjust things in the cockpit.
Guy who's on the move right now is Marco Andretti. This is his hometown race. Now he's looking up the backside of his teammate who's lost distance here to the leaders. So Marco wants to move forward and have a great result here in front of his family.
Watching the gap holding steady at about 1.3 seconds. Rossi to Will Power. Goes Charlie Kimball making a move on Conor Daly there. Here comes Ed Jones trying to follow, also making a look or taking a look on Conor Daly. And for Conor Daly, he's drinking through a fire hose.
Yeah.
He's just trying to get up to speed with this team. Very few laps on the track so far.
Learning with every lap, and we're just hearing word that Conor brushed the wall on the exit of 2. Have a look.
He did brush the wall.
That's a pretty decent brush too. This team will be watching carefully right side tire pressures.
Where you see Ed Jones setting up a move here in the blue car as Tony Kanaan is making his way to pit road, and it looks like he is not under power. But a quick update on Ed Jones. You saw he and Simon Pagano on pit lane making repairs. Unfortunately for Ed Jones, he did not get it done by the time the cars went by, so he is 1 lap down.
Whereas Pagano did, the Team Penske guys did a super job to service the Frenchman and get him out, so Jones is playing catch-up here. Meanwhile, Alexander Rossi is extending his lead. There it is. That's what nearly 2 seconds looks like over Will Power and then Joseph Newgarden. Zach Veach and Marco Andretti, the top 5.
A little surprised to see Rossi able to open up that gap with the what appeared to be additional downforce on Rossi's configuration relative to Power, and Power with such a fast car in qualifying and super quick last year. It could be that Will Power is just experiencing a little bit of dirty air, lack of downforce if he gets within a few car lengths of Rossi, and he's happy to just kind of sit back, find his own pocket of air. He's not under any threat from his teammate Newgarden behind, and just kind of ride right now. See what the mileage looks like. Think about the balance. A long way to go in this race.
Yeah, let's do a stint.
Yeah,
let's do a stint and see where we're at, see how it was. So we check in with Katie.
And I'm here with George Klotz, who calls the races for Tony Kanaan. George, it looks like TK has no power. Do you know what's happened?
No, we're taking a look at that right now. We plugged in and didn't see anything. We really didn't have an explanation of what's going on. We'll just look into it.
And this leads to an even more frustrating season for Tony Kanaan, Lee.
What a shame for the driver who has led laps here at Pocono the last 5 years in a row, including a top 5 result overall last year.
Look at that, championship points on your left as they run right now. Dixon with only 17 points of a lead in the championship. Right now, things not trending the right way for the 9 car, Kevin.
Well, the 27 car of Alexander Rossi is pulling out a big gap, almost 2 seconds already, and not that surprising from the conversations I had with Alex and also Rob Edwards leading into this one today. They felt really good, got through their program, even though they missed one of the practice sessions yesterday, and a lot of that is because Zach Veach was here testing last week. It was a rookie test, but Veach did such a nice job of getting through their program that they were able to start further along than everyone else, got a lot of things done. And as far as fuel saving, even if there wouldn't have been the yellows, Rob Edwards told me, we're going to go out and run hard here from the beginning. We think if we need to save, we can do it later on.
I tell you what, he is running hard because he's cutting those walls real close, Townsend. You and I both looked at each other with big eyes and like, whoa, he almost brushed the wall here in turn 2 in the tunnel turn. So he is standing on the gas and pulling on that. Look how close he's getting to the wall. We got 480 miles to go.
Alexander Rossi knows one gear, and that's top gear, flat out. Whether it's practice, qualifying, or the race, he is so determined, and he'll wring everything out of the car at any time.
And think about the momentum that is on this young Californian side at the moment. The win at Mid-Ohio, the dominant weekend at Mid-Ohio, and this season, you know, you give him that settle-in season. The settle-in season was when he won the Indy 500. So then last year, build and learn more, and then this year has been something else from Alexander Rossi. So now 1.9 seconds ahead of this man here, Will Power, Joseph Newgarden. No positional changes, and the championship leader, Scott Dixon, running all the way back in 8th. That brings him up from his starting position of 13th, but he is some 12 seconds behind this man.
Have a look at Ed Carpenter in the 20 car, Fuzzy's car, running solidly in 7th.
We discussed this yesterday in qualifying, is that Ed's still working out the details for next year. He loves the Indianapolis Motor Speedway so much. You may remember he was on the pole this year and finished second in the race behind Will Power, that he may just do the 500 next year and have 2 full-time drivers in the car, as opposed to switching out with Jordan King, that he's done that with various drivers over the years. He may have 2 full-timers, so Spencer Pickett and maybe Jordan King, and then he'll just focus on the big one at the Brickyard.
There's a lot of guys in the driver market looking around, a lot of guys from other series looking to come in, like from IMSA and other places from around the world. So there's a lot of options for Ed to look at.
So nice and clean and building some momentum and some laps now after a really rough start to the day. It's Alexander Rossi for Michael Andretti leading the way. Just in case you're not at home, a reminder that you can watch every IndyCar race online on mobiles, tablets and connected TV devices as well with the NBC Sports app. Simply download the app or find out more at NBCsports.com. So useful. As we welcome you back to the ABC Supply 500 here on NBCSN. Alexander Rossi is the race leader. However, one of those ABC Supply AJ Foyt cars is out. It's Tony Kanaan. Katie Hargan, what's the story?
And Tony, when it rains, it certainly pours here at Pocono. What's the diagnosis for the 14 car?
Looks like we lost a throttle sensor, so all of a sudden I lost power between 2 and 3. And I had to come in, so it's gonna take probably 15 minutes to change. We just don't want to be out there in the middle of, with 15 laps down. It's not gonna do us any good, so we call it a day. It's a shame. When it rains, it pours, but we'll look to turn the situation around. We're not giving up.
It sounds like Tony's going to head up and have a visit with you guys here in a little bit.
Oh, welcome TK up here. That'll be a little bit of fun as we get back to the business at hand. And what that is Alexander Rossi extending his lead out to 3 seconds now.
Stabilized a bit at the front with the gap to Power as we see Tony Kanaan's teammate at AJ Foyt Racing, Matheus Leist, currently 9th.
Really good.
Started 20th. Avoided all the melee there at the start and looks to have a clean car. The biggest mover of the race so far. Second biggest mover, Conor Daly, moved up 10 positions despite a brush with the wall already. Really a shame for Kanaan, Paul, because outside of Indianapolis, I'd say this was probably his best chance for a great result. And to have a sensor put you out like that, it's got to be frustrating. They look to have a really, really decent car.
Yeah, he came to Foyt this year with big hopes of really kind of resurrecting this team and bringing it back to the forefront that it has been. And they haven't won a race since 14, and he really wanted to get a win this year on an oval and run well on road courses. As we look at championship leader Scott Dixon, as he's just riding along doing what he does. Don't count him out, because by the end of the race, I guarantee you, he'll be up inside the top 5 or 6.
All right, grab those remote controls at home, turn up the volume, let's have a listen, let's go for a ride around Pocono with the championship leader.
because a straight up pass looks very, very difficult.
The thing I noticed with Scott is he's so relaxed in his environment. I'm watching his hands on the steering wheel, and he's shifting, and he takes his hand off, and he drops it down on the steering wheel, relaxes. When you're younger, you like grab a hold of the steering wheel, you're hanging on for dear life. Watch this as he comes off of the corner here, and he gets out onto the main straightaway. He drops his hand down here. Watch his hand right here. So he comes into the corner, does a downshift, comes through the corner here, gets out onto the straight. Most young guys are hanging on for dear life. His hand drops down, he's relaxed, he's chill. He knows he's got a long way to go.
And one of the reasons for that is an IndyCar super speedway configuration like this wants to turn left when you're going straight. And you're basically steering the car to the right to hold it straight. And then you steer to the left in the corner. But there's no such thing as the car just tracking perfectly straight because of the stagger and the way the car is set up.
The attrition rate grows. There is another driver out of this race. It's Spencer Pickett. Katie?
And Lee, he was involved in the very first incident today, and we thought he was going to make it back out on track. Spencer, what ultimately brought an end to your day?
Oh, that was always the plan. You know, we were so many laps down already. There was not much for us to gain. We just kind of went out and did enough laps to jump everyone that was involved in the other incident. But yeah, our race was kind of over before it began. The car had quite a lot of damage to the right rear, and when we went back out, it didn't feel quite right. So no sense risking anything else on the car. So we gained the positions we could gain, and you know, that's our race, unfortunately.
The good news is his team owner, Ed Carpenter, is still out there, Lee.
Yeah, what a shame for Spencer. The last time the series was on an oval, he stood on an IndyCar podium for the very first time with a fine second place at Iowa Speedway.
Well, this guy right here is absolutely flying. He's out to 5.5 seconds. He's running a half a second a lap quicker than Power as we look at Sebastian Bourdais and Marco Andretti. But right now, Rossi is absolutely flying. He's doing what he did at Mid-Ohio. He's probably making good mileage, and his car is just working phenomenal.
It's Andretti Autosport, Team Penske, and another Andretti car before we pick up Dale Coyne Racing with Vassar and Sullivan. And then Ed Carpenter in 7th for his own team, and then the lead Ganassi car in Scott Dixon. But that's what almost 6 seconds looks like between the leader and second place.
Went from 5.5 to 5.9 in one lap. Lap times 42.2 for Rossi, 42.6, so 0.4 of a second per lap quicker. Tear off, coming off for Power.
Matthias Lace with his first race stop of the day. The sole remaining AJ Foyt ABC Supply car. There's almost 2,000 guests of ABC Supply, the principal sponsor for this race here today. They always have a really healthy sized hospitality unit, but to have some 1,900 guests here is phenomenal.
We'll be seeing guys pitting here, Townsend, in the next couple laps. We're at lap 37, so with that first yellow there, I think we're going to see guys coming at 39.40.
Yep.
Rossi's ready to come, so he's going to come in on 38.
So we'll be watching in and out laps very carefully. If you remember last year, Will Power was so brilliant on his in and out laps, so fast. That's where he made up a ton of time. Here comes Rossi, peeling off, braking as late as possible to the speed line, and coming to Kevin on pit lane.
And the general consensus I've been hearing is that the leader is going to get about a lap, maybe even 2 laps less fuel mileage. So that's why Rossi, running out front, is coming in earlier than everyone else. However, one strategy or one option coming up is when you get into lap traffic, you're within 8 or 9 seconds, you might gain a little fuel strategy, and Rossi's been coming up on some lap traffic. No changes, no fuel. Rossi back out, Jan.
And his teammate Marco Andretti, they're going to take some front wing, put more front wing into it, and made a tire pressure change. That's 9.7 seconds. That's not a very fast stop, but they got the changes made for Marco Andretti.
Well, we're going to see where they all cycle out here. Power's going to run. Here he comes now, and I would expect here comes his teammate. So 1 lap further than the leader, and see if that's an advantage or not.
Last year it was Scott Dixon doing the first pitting from the lead and getting back out again ahead. We'll see if that happens for Alexander Rossi this year. His Power.
And one advantage that Power has now with Ryan Hunter-Reay out of the race, it's an easier entry, and it helps out both Power and Joseph Newgarden. Front wing change, they're adding for Power. He's back out. So now we're going to start watching them cycle through. Rossi blows by, and Power and Newgarden are back out.
Rossi's already long gone, and he's still got a huge lead. He had 6 seconds when they came. Right now, the leader is Carpenter, Dixon in second. Pagenaud has already done an early pit stop to fix his car. I don't know if he took fuel or not, or went off sequence.
Remember, for Dixon, Carpenter, these guys were able to top up, not Carpenter, but Dixon, Pagenaud, and Kimball as Carpenter comes to his box.
And Ed Carpenter pulls into his box after moving up from 7th. You see fresh Firestones going on there, not expecting wing adjustment, but we see the right front tire changer reach around for an adjustment there. We also see Simon Pagenaud pull into his pit box. He was complaining of some major understeer, so we're expecting a big front wing adjustment. You see it there in a long stop of almost 9 seconds, Lee.
I tell you what's going on out on track. Marco Andretti's got his hands full with Zach Veach, his teammate, and Sebastian Bourdais. So Marco lost positions on that green flag stop. So that trio are fighting hard over 7th, 8th, and 9th as Simon Pagenaud rejoins the order. Here is Zach Veach. They're in the bright yellow car. For Dale Coyne with Vassar and Sullivan is Bourdais. And then Marco Andretti at the back of that group. This is a spirited fight.
3 Honda cars all together, 2 teammates.
And with fresh tires, those first few laps after the pit stop, that's your opportunity, it seems like today, to make some moves.
Scott Dixon's still on track. Hasn't pitted yet. Now he's up to 41 laps.
Remember, he topped up on lap 10 after the yellow, so they opted to take fuel, and if he's able to go 2 or 3 laps further, as we understand he's coming to pit lane now, that could be a nice advantage for Dixon later on today.
At 13.5 seconds, Jan, over Alexander Rossi at this point. Let's see how this shakes out.
Yes, and of course, this has been an award-winning crew. They're going to try to get this done as quickly as possible. Now, your first stops should be the quickest for fuel because you have the gravity-fed system. You can go in faster. And that was an add of 1 full turn of front wing for Scott Dixon. Work done quickly. We'll see where he merges out.
So he's going to come out right behind Bourdais and Andretti. Looks like Marco should comfortably clear him and just in front of Carpenter. So we'll watch Ed Carpenter coming up on Dixon at the exit of 2 here. Carpenter's at full steam.
Really only made up 1 position. He was running 8th, 9th before the pit stops. Came back out in about the same spot, but Ed Carpenter, big run. Nothing Dixon could do there but get in line and just keep making your fuel mileage. Right now, Rossi, 7.5 second lead as he's now caught Chilton to put him a lap down.
Don't rush it here. Awfully late move into 1. Max Chilton lets him go. I was a little concerned there that it might be a little too late, but Alexander Rossi on the charge again.
Saw Trevor Carlin last night after practice was washed out, and he said, not quite our weekend this weekend. We've got some work to do on our super speedway package. As we continue to enjoy the IndyCar action here at Pocono, a reminder that the series continues from Gateway Motorsports Park, and it's the Bommarito Automotive Group 500. That's next Saturday night in St. Louis. Coverage begins at 8 Eastern right here on NBCSN. As we welcome you back, we ride aboard Graham Rahall's Honda, and he is several laps down. Weekend just has not been a great one for Graham, and he was involved in that incident at the initial start of the race, and then unapproved work during the red. He was handed a 2-lap penalty, so he is trying to stop going down to 4 laps behind because he's got the leader right behind him, Alexander Rossi.
In front of Rahal, Conor Daly, the final car on the lead lap. So wouldn't expect much resistance from Rahal being 3 laps down, but Conor Daly has a strong incentive to try and stay ahead of Rossi.
Well, he's definitely slowed Rossi's pace down because Rossi is now running about 9/10 of a second slower than he was running on his own. So it's going to be tough for him when guys are wanting to stay on the lead lap to get by. So Power now has clawed back. He was 8.5 back. Now he's 7.7 back. So Rossi's got to make quick work of these guys because they're costing him a little bit of time, but he does have a big lead.
But not going to plan at quarter race distance for Alexander Rossi, because you may have noticed that points graphic as they run at this early stage of the race. And Rossi has trimmed Scott Dixon's lead from 46 to 18. Long way to go.
I look even further back than Rossi to Dixon. Look back and say Will Power is only 70 points back.
Right.
So 3 races to go, double points at the last race. It's pretty cool to see the championship battle tightening up before our eyes.
Well, it's absolutely wide open right now. I mean, look at the accident that Scott got through. If he'd have gone out in that, we'd have been talking a whole different championship leader, and the whole thing turned upside down. So with 4 races still left to go, including this one, there's a long way to go.
Looking at the 1 and the mission to defend the 1 for Joseph Newgarden. Tell us more, Kev.
Talking with his engineer, Brian Campy, before this race, he said, we really got through just about everything we wanted in that one practice session yesterday. They were planning for rain, so knew they wouldn't have a lot of time. He said the only thing we didn't really get to or like to is running in traffic. So they were hoping with a second place starting position they could run up front. In traffic, a little more concerned. He had understeer in the first end, 3 turns of front wing, and now some problems with the rear, and he even thought he had a vibration for a little while. Not bad now, but Joseph Newgarden is just trying to hang on right now in this segment. Jan?
And Kevin, now that this first stint has been completed, Firestone, Kara Adams, the chief engineer for Firestone, you've been running up and down looking at the tires as they come off. What do you see?
So far we see really good wear. There are some teams that seem to be using a little bit more of the left front tires, so on certain cars they're about 90% worn after a stint, but there are some tires have very little wear, so it all looks good.
You talk about left and right side. The left side are Indianapolis tires, on the right is Texas. Why do you make that choice?
So it makes a really good balance between what the teams need out of turn 1 versus how they can set up the car out of turn 3. We found bringing that combination makes the best balance and is the easiest for the engineers to set up the car.
All right, thank you, Kara. And of course, in tire speak, if you're 90% worn, that means you've done your job perfectly.
Rossi finally getting around Conor Daly. His gap has gone down to 4.9 seconds. It was up to almost 8.5 before he started catching the lapped cars.
Now the gap will probably grow again as Will Power will catch and have to deal with Conor Daly.
Ray Hall has disappeared out of the mix. I don't know if he pulled the pits, but he was in that mix with Daly and is not there anymore.
And look at this, Zach Veach edging ever so closer to Joseph Newgarden and bringing Sebastian Bourdais and Marco Andretti with him.
Riding on board with Veach, and I'd say right now, Paul, Zach Veach looks about the best in traffic. I don't think we've seen somebody able to follow as close, and I think I saw Newgarden up ahead with a pretty decent wiggle exiting turn 3. So right now, Veach looks very confident. You can see it in his hands. In terms of the balance, it looks pretty predictable. Watching the throttle trace, it's a one-time application off of turn 1.
Yeah, some big changes went on Newgarden's car during his pit stop. Obviously some wing changes, complained of some vibration in the rear, so maybe that is starting to creep back in now that we've got 10-15 laps into this next stint, as we see Veach now edging even closer.
Here is championship leader Scott Dixon, and nothing lost and nothing gained on that first stop of green flag pit stops, because he came in 8th and still runs 8th. Now during this very confronting crash between Robert Wickens and Ryan Hunter-Reay and 4 other drivers, look how lucky Dixon got. There is the spinning Wickens, and Dixon just picked his place perfectly and had to do it again as well to avoid Ryan Hunter-Reay. If you haven't seen this crash, this is what caused nearly a 2-hour red flag earlier today. Robert Wickens climbing over Hunter-Reay and up into the catch fencing. He was awake and alert at the time of being transported by air to a local hospital in Allentown here in Pennsylvania. And that could have been Scott Dixon's day over if he had been just in a slightly different position. But the veteran was able to pick his way through there and now runs in the top 10 in 8th place, Jan.
And you talk about picking his way through there. You know that Scott Dixon made an earlier pit stop just before we went back to green, or just after the green flag flew in the second segment, if you want to call that. They changed the right side tires for that very reason. They had an opportunity to look over the tires when the car was on pit lane, decided just in case, because of that debris field, they took an extra pit stop, which has them a little bit out of sequence, but they changed those right sides.
Firestone telemetry at the bottom of your screen there. I can't get enough of these onboards. Listening to the lifts, listening
those things, they'll put the input back into your wrist, and he feels that having an aluminum-based steering wheel, when you hit the wall and your hand's still on the wheel, that wheel will give and maybe alleviate some injuries.
And in the center of those wheels, whatever design they may be, is the standardized Cosworth LED electronic wheel, new to this year. So it looks pretty good and clear, and it helps us too, and helps you at home see what gear they're in and what's going on as far as their mapping, etc. So here at the Tricky Triangle, it's Alexander Rossi in that Napa Auto Parts Andretti Autosport Honda, who has a commanding lead and has been in command of this race the majority of the day. Haven't missed a thing while we're away, other than the fact that Alexander Rossi continues to increase his lead in the ABC Supply 500 over this man here, Will Power, who is trying to win 3 years in succession here at Pocono Raceway. Boy, he's got his hands full in a very different race to last year, when Will had to come from behind. He had a myriad of challenges and some very clever strategy and some really good driving from his team and himself. Got him the win back-to-back. Now he's trying to go for 3, but Rossi is displaying an 11.5-second lead over Power.
And think about what Alexander Rossi's done this season. Long Beach, totally dominant. Mid-Ohio, totally dominant. Here so far at Pocono, it's the same thing. It's not only Rossi leading, but leading convincingly.
And Will Power is just trying to navigate his way around Conor Daly. And it's not happening very quickly.
No, and that gap now to Rossi, 12 seconds and growing quickly. There goes Power to get around Conor Daly. Nice of Conor Daly to help out. I bet that was a little bit of lift on the back straightaway. Good sportsmanship. But there's Rossi, almost 13 seconds ahead.
So looking a little further down the order, as Joseph Newgarden is coming up on traffic, and he has got Veach Bourdais and Andretti and Ed Carpenter in the line, and then we pick up the championship leader, Scott Dixon. Let's head to the Ganassi camp now.
Yes, a quick word with Mike Hose on the radio with Scott. You've made one extra pit stop because it looked like a concern on the outside tires. You saw something when it was sitting in pit road?
Yeah, we did. We didn't want to take a chance on it. It's a 500-mile race. We didn't want to have to come in the pits under green. You lose too much time, so we chose to stop when everybody's under yellow, and we made some of that ground up already.
There was some concern in qualifying when he bottomed in turn number 1, so you didn't really know what you had as a setup. What's the feedback so far?
The feedback is we have a lot of push. You've probably heard that on the radio already. So we gave it plenty of front wing, and we changed the tire pressures. We'll change stagger next time and give it some more wing and see if we can run through these people.
All right, keep tuning on it. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Sebastian Bourdais is tuning on it nicely. You may notice here that the Sealmaster entry's got around Zach Veach, and he sets his sights out on Team Penske's Joseph Newgarden.
Yeah, we got a lot of action right here from 4th back to about 8th or 9th, and we've got Tony Kanaan in the booth. Maybe he can explain to us. We haven't seen a ton of passing. This is really the first big pass we've seen on track with Bourdais, but how tough is it to get real close to these guys, Tony?
It's really tough, guys. I mean, with this package nowadays, if you see a car, it's actually already affecting. And turn 2 became a corner. Obviously, it's an understatement after what happened today. We say that, but it's really difficult. You saw the guys that tried to kind of like, I'm not gamble. The window had opened under the yellow and people pitted. And Dixon didn't make enough ground yet because the track position is so important.
Tony, you talked about the aero understeer, but in turn 2, how much worse are the bumps this year, and how much does that lead to the drivers having to lift in traffic?
It is the worst combination possible, right? The track got worse. It has 3 bumps instead of 1, and we lost 2,000 pounds of downforce. So before last year, we had 1 bump and a ton of downforce. You would recover very quick. The problem now, you just don't recover as quick after you hit 3 bumps, and that wall comes in fast.
Marco Andretti hits pit lane, so comes out of that really interesting scrap within the mid-top 10, and Jan standing by.
And the first from this sequence to hit pit road. We will watch to see what kind of changes they make, because we heard from Mike Hull, so many people making changes. That was 1.5, now 2.5 turns of front wing. That would explain why why you make an earlier pit stop. If you need 2.5 turns of front wing, that is a big push.
But guys, he pitted after only 28 laps, Marco Andretti, and that really puts at risk the 5-stop ability for Marco to make it at the end. So, Tony, I'm wondering if he really didn't like something with his handling there.
For sure he didn't, and the thing is, at this track, it's actually as long as you stay out, if you're not hung up in traffic, if you stay out 2 or 3 laps, it gives you a huge advantage. Look at Will Power last year. He had a problem, but he was on his own, and you can tell, you know, do 3-4 miles an hour speeds quicker than the guys in front. You can gain a lot of ground.
Zach Veach and Sebastian Bourdais at it again, with Veach with the upper hand this time, getting by the Frenchman.
That was a really big wing change by Marco. 2.5 turns is a lot of turns, especially at a place like here or Indy. Talking to some engineers, there's a stall point if you get too much angle. And these, Tony, when you're playing at Indy and practicing, testing, half a turn is a lot.
Oh yeah, you're doing half a turns now.
Dixon is in.
Dixon's in. And you know, when you talk about the half a turn of front wing, it's like you go between 1 and 3 turns, it's too much. It's a lot. You always stall it.
Well, the quick update on Marco Andretti is that he just wanted to get out of sequence and get out of traffic. There was no issue other than that wing change. Now we see what Mike Hull will tell us. And we did see some movement up at the front. He said they're changing stagger. That, of course, is a smaller inside rear tire versus the outside. That makes it turn more.
26 laps that stint for Scott Dixon.
There comes Scott Dixon out. Now, he was short-filled there. That was a much shorter stint. Remember, he was able to go longer because he did a fill right before they went to green. Dixon getting clean air could really help him leapfrog positions here because he was riding around in traffic, and the pit stop was lightning fast because he didn't need as much fuel.
These two guys right here are going back and forth as we saw.
Joseph Newgarden coming in maybe about 5 laps earlier. Just a few laps ago, I heard Tim Cindric say around lap 75, and they come in, as I mentioned earlier, they were able to position the rear of the car, some understeer front wing adjustment, and Newgarden is back out.
I really like the strategy there for Dixon by splashing earlier. Look, it's going to play out here.
Yeah, he's coming
here
through
comes
the field.
Newgarden. Dixon's in full chat.
Yeah, I noticed that he got ahead of Marco, and he's going to get Newgarden here. Honda against Chevy drag race down the back straight. Marco gets a run. Now these cars are starting to get racy.
Andretti on the outside of Scott Dixon. Dixon can't respond.
Well, that's a smart move by Dixon to get in line and not go too abreast through that corner.
And Marco did the same thing Dixon did, opting to come in early, find some clean air, and it's making a difference. Zach Veach leaving the pits. Tony, what do you have?
But see, that's what happens, right? I think that
Alexander Rossi coming through. He's got the easy in. Will Power is probably going to pit the next time by. So while he's not getting as much mileage as some, it's not that big of an issue because of the cautions. They're well past where the window was open for a 5-stop strategy. Front wing change that time, and still a really quick stop. Under 8 seconds, and Rossi back out.
Whoa, he nearly lost it there, getting on the power. But Tony, what were you saying to finish your thought as we see Pagenaud coming in with Katie?
And PT Simon Pagenaud is saying it's crazy how much his front tires degraded over that stint. He does want some help as you see the team reach around for a big wing adjustment there and another long stop for the 22.
So what I was saying, I think Mike Hall and Brian Herta saw it, that those guys are getting hung up and trying to pass each other and losing a lot of time. They pit those guys earlier, short field them, and they gain all those track positions.
And you see how fast things happen up here too, TK?
I know, man,
for you
it's
down
crazy.
there as it is for us up here.
I'm more nervous here than I was down there.
Here's Will Power.
So Power comes in. We'll keep an eye on Rossi. See if Power makes up any ground on the in and out laps. Along with Sunoco Fuel, look at the back end. They're making a rear wing adjustment along with a front wing adjustment. Rossi is long gone. Power back out with Sunoco Fuel and Firestones.
Yeah, Rossi still has a huge lead. We'll see where Power files out here. He comes out right here with Ed Jones.
I think just coming out of 3 was Andretti and Dixon. Here is race leader Alexander Rossi.
That's a big lead. That's the whole back straightaway lead. And Power's got a big lead on that group of cars that was racing with Newgarden.
So Rossi came in with about a 12-second lead before the cycle of pit stops over Power. Now it's still back to about 11 seconds. But Marco Andretti and Scott Dixon were the big benefactors in that exchange by coming in early.
Getting that clean air and getting in and out and running fast has leapfrogged those guys in front of that whole group.
And it's pushed Joseph Newgarden down the order to 5th. Hey, TK, can you stick around a little bit longer?
Of course.
I know you've got 1,900 guests to talk to, but we'll be back. Still 124 laps to run in the ABC Supply 500 here at Pocono. Lee Diffie, Townsend Bell, and Paul Tracy with our special guest, Tony Kanaan, who unfortunately had to retire from this race. Hey, TK, remind the viewers what happened to your car. And I have to say, I'm pleased that you did at least get to start. And what did you run? You ran some 16 laps, because you are fast approaching your 300th consecutive IndyCar start. That'll happen at Sonoma in California later this year. Amazing performance, mate.
Yeah, we had a throttle failure, a throttle sensor failure. We have 2 in the engine, and one of them failed, so we lost power, and then we had to come in. It was going to take 15 minutes to change, and we didn't feel like going back there with, 25 laps down.
How nice is it as an AJ Foyt driver to know that with AJ not here, a laptop's not going to come winging across the timing stand and whack you in the head when a throttle sensor fails?
Well, I know it was not going to go through my head, that's for sure, for whoever that fault was. But AJ's at home recovering. I spoke to him. He has actually been pretty nice this year, I should say. We had a year that is a lot of ups and downs, and we're trying to fix every issue for next year. But yeah, I mean, a shame. But I get to experience this, which is more stressful than anything else, watching you guys, the way you guys work. And if you notice, Veach, I was watching his in-car. He's switching the front bar back and forth between turn 1 and turn 3, which is because I think the car must be a little bit of neutral in 1 and then actually understeer me to exit in turn 3.
You're acting as mentor and coach and big brother to young Matheus Leis, the 19-year-old Brazilian who's running in the top 10 at the moment. We have to give him a pat on the back. What is your assessment, though, of another young driver in Zach Veach this year in his rookie season?
I tell you what, man, if you look at the rookies this year, it was like when Townsend got into our series, and he was like, it was an eye-opening right away. PT gave him a chrome horn in Laguna Seca right away. But, I mean, it's a pretty talented group of rookies, right? You put Wilkinson and, Veach, Laced. I mean, it's been an unbelievable. I think that I hadn't seen that in many years, like back on our days here. So it's, the 3 kids are like going at it, and which is amazing. It's really good to see that.
Jan?
Well, Tony, I can give you an answer as to one reason why Zach Veach has been making that front bar change, and that is in the last pit stop, they lost their wing adjuster. So when he came onto pit road, there was no way for them to add front wing. So one of the team members needed to get over the wall and get a speed handle, in other words, a speed wrench, and get it in there and try and move up that. So you see, there is no wing adjuster, so therefore you have to go kind of old school, go with a speed handle, and he tried his best to see if he could wind some wing in, but wasn't certain if he got more wing angle. So that delayed his pit stop, and so therefore it's kind of what he has now, and he has to work the bar to try to compensate.
A lot of silly season action going on, Tony. We know where you're going to be next year, and there's that adjuster on the front car. We know you're real tight with Alonso. You got any secrets that you can let out? You heard anything? You talked to your buddy?
I talked to him after Le Mans. We trade helmets. I think you guys saw that. And he said, now I have to do the 500 again. And so I'm pretty sure that it's going to happen. But also I said, well, if you're going to do the 500, why don't you come over and do some left and right turns with us and do everything? He's like, I'll think about that. So if you ask my opinion, he's definitely in the 500. If you ask my opinion, I think he's going to choose to do the whole thing.
How exciting for the series for that to be to happen?
It'd be huge. I mean, it would be huge in Europe. I think would be good. A good way to weight the drivers here. People don't rate us very much sometimes.
By the way, if you've taped the WEC Silverstone event, you don't want to know the results, close your ears for a moment. It was a great day for Fernando Alonso and Buemi and Nakajima. So Fernando just continues his sports car success, added to the Le Mans victory. He's only got one more big one to do, and that is, of course, at the Brickyard.
Don't forget, PT, that Alonso promised us yacht management opportunity when he comes stateside for good, so we're still waiting for that.
Time for a Chevrolet driver update, and let's see who the best of them is, and it is Will Power, who runs second at the moment, some 11 seconds in arrears of Alexander Rossi, and then Newgarden and Pagenaud and Ed Carpenter up there. Good to see Ed turn some good laps, and he's in the mix in the top 10 in 9th. Robin?
Hey, TK, so we keep hearing that Alonso sticks with McLaren, he's not going to get to run a Honda, so he's probably going to have to run a Chevy. Why maybe wouldn't he be and Ed Carpenter could be a candidate to run him with a Chevrolet. What about Anthony Joseph Foyt and your team? Would you welcome Fernando Alonso as a teammate, my man?
Of course. I would welcome him at any time, but I can't tell you right now that's not happening in our team. We need to get our group together. That would be a huge distraction right away. We don't have the force to add a third car right now, and I don't think that's happening with us. But I'm pretty sure we know who he's going with.
Well, I can't tell you, but we're going to save that for the Gateway show next week.
I think Anthony Foyt would have a heart attack if he had to pay Alonso's salary as well.
Well, TK told me the other day for the story I did, he said, hey, the good thing, Miller, is that Alonso doesn't care about money. And Tony's right. Instead of $25 million, he's only asking 10.
Hey, Robin, I don't understand. If Alonso's not allowed to drive a Honda, how's he going to test one at Barber in a couple weeks?
He can test a Honda. He can't race a Honda if it says if there's any McLaren signage on it. That's what I've been told.
Well, how do you say McLaren backwards?
Kanan?
On board with Scott Dixon. Running fourth. Came in on that last round of green flag stops, eighth. Leapfrog fourth with that short fill. Smart strategy. And he runs behind Marco Andretti, Will Power, and Alexander Rossi.
One, I can sew pretty well. I actually can draw a bit. Actually did graffiti when I was younger. I was a skateboarder. I could probably still jump on and pull a kickflip off and shove it and some cool ollies and that sort of stuff. I was a mechanic, so I used to prepare my own race cars, do everything, wheel alignments, engine changes, gear ratios. Played the trumpet in a concert band when I was in primary school.
And the one thing he didn't say there about himself, as we put Will in the Chevrolet driver profile, I guess he thinks that most people know it, is that he's a very accomplished drummer.
Tony, I can tie my shoes and ride a dirt bike all right. What are your special skills?
I have none.
You wouldn't even take the football challenge yesterday.
I had 5 things, but I was a rollerblade instructor for 6 years. So I can really rollerblade anytime you want.
Well, that sounds like an ulterior motive.
We know you're a running, swimming, and biking machine.
Yeah,
that's 3. Are you going to do the Ironman this year, or are you just
I'm going
chilling?
to do a half Ironman at the end of the season. The full Ironman. Having a baby in 3 weeks, I think the wife wouldn't be happy for me training that much.
Which will be dad of number 4.
You need to
busy man, away from the track.
You need to slow down on that. You're going to
That's
be working, You're going to be working
I
till you're
promise
100.
you guys on national TV.
What are you building, a pit crew?
I might. A full basketball team.
Is this an instruction to Lauren, or you've negotiated this one, or you both agree?
We both agree on that one. Trust me.
Meanwhile, your teammate Matthias Leist, who is a lovely young man, is having probably the race of his season here. In 10th position, is trying to fend off the race leader and trying to prevent himself from going down a lap. But the way that Alexander Rossi has been running today, it's inevitable.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, it's taking Alex quite a few laps to be able to pass him.
And it's great news for Will Power, because what was almost a 12-second gap down to 9 seconds and dropping quickly now into the 8-second range. Will Power sits behind Alexander Rossi, and this is what we've been talking about all day. And Tony, you mentioned it right when you came, is
Rossi.
the understeer that guys are getting when you're 5-6 car lengths back.
He got way high there, kind of understeered up the track, and that's really it's going to cost him a lot of lap time. Immediately it dropped down to an 8.8.
And you know, PT, this year with this little downforce, when it washes out like that, and you lift, it just keeps going. It doesn't stop, and then you lose a lot of time. You can see him trying to run under the yellow line there to get some clean air to try to get a run, but
he's been flirting with the wall, getting really close, driving real hard all day. So he's caught this traffic, but at some point, Will Power's going to get to this traffic as well and going to have to deal with it.
8 seconds now, 7 seconds. Will Power is closing deliberately lap after lap.
Look in the background, you'll see Power on that silver Verizon Chevrolet any moment. There he is. So back to the final car on the lead lap. That is Matthias Lace. Let's head to AJ Foyt Racing with Katie.
And he is up 10 positions so far. We're going to check in with his team owner, Larry Foyt. Larry, what improvements have you seen from Matthias over this season so far?
Well, he's done a good job. You know, he's got a lot to learn. Young man, really came out of the box really fast, which was great. But after Indy, we just struggled as a team. So not on him, just part of the whole team and trying to get better. But good kid. He's got a bright future ahead of him. So we're just working on getting him experience today.
500 miles for him to get that experience today. What do you want to see from him?
Yeah, exactly that. He did a good job at Indy. Obviously, Tony was very good here. He was a big help for Matthias, but a shame we lost Tony early with an electrical issue. But Matthias will hopefully bring it home for us and get 500 laps of experience here is good.
I don't know if you know this because you've been on Matthias' stand, but Tony's up in the booth having fun with the guys.
That's good. I mean, you know, Tony's a great addition. We hate it with all the ABC folks here that we didn't have a better run today with Tony, but Matthias is still out there getting the ABC car around. So shame with everything that happened today. Crazy race, but great crowd, and hopefully put a good show on at the end.
Tony's still giving him some love up there in the booth, right, TK?
Right. Isn't my boss handsome or what, huh?
I tell you what, Will Power is going to buy Matthias Lace a steak dinner because that lead has been trimmed to 4.9 seconds.
The only thing I see, Lee, he's going to have to clear Graham and Jones, so that could actually hold him back as well.
Kev?
And Alexander Rossi is not riding behind Matthias Lace right now just because he's trying to get a draft and save some fuel. He's been trying to get by him. Tried in turn 2, then said, all right, I can't get him in 2. I'm going to try him in 3. Now, I have not heard him say this in the last little while, but earlier on, he did say, I've got nothing in traffic. So, guys explained it. The car is one thing when you're out by yourself, but entirely different when you come up on somebody else.
Well, he's losing this almost a second a lap now because now it's down to 4 seconds lead. And it was 5 the last time around.
But here's what we're going to look for. I think the pit windows are starting to widen up. So we're going to get to pit stops here pretty soon.
As we fast approach the halfway mark of the ABC Supply 500 here at Pocono.
Back at Pocono, where local hero Marco Andretti makes his pit stop. Remember, he is on a bit of an earlier sequence. This is still good enough for a 5-stopper, but he's on the early part of that. That paid dividends with track partition last time. Now Laced is in. Katie.
And we just heard from Larry Foyt, his team owner. He just wants Matthias Lace to finish these 500 laps, and it looks like no adjustments for him on this pit stop.
So Ed Jones completes his stop as Marco Andretti is back out. And we wait for the guys at the top. Rossi's lead trimmed to 3.5 seconds now.
Really important for Marco Andretti to make that earlier stop work. You need clean air. Marco Andretti has clean air right now. He can make up the gap that he had to Power.
And we expected Simon Pagenaud, or excuse me, I expected Simon to pit just a little bit earlier. He was complaining over the radio that he was just stuck behind Zach Veach in 8th position, as we see another big wing adjustment for him there, and a long stop once again for him, Lee.
Really long stops for the Penske guys. 9-3 is a horrendously long stop for that crew, but the next guy that's going to come is going to be Dixon, and he was battling with Marco, so we'll see Dixon. There he is, right there, coming in.
No, Dixon's went by. Dixon went by.
That's Veach.
Eyes like a hawk over there, TK.
We're a team here, right? I feel part of it now.
Well, what we have learned about Zach Veach is when they use that speed handle, they did get some front wing into it. In fact, he says, I like the car now, but I'm losing the rear a little, so I would not expect to see any movement up front. Well, that's quite a bit better. 7.6 second stop. It helps a lot when you don't have to jump in the front of the car with a speed handle. This one went according to plan.
Let's see how Zach Veach blends out here with his teammate, Marco Andretti. There's Dixon.
See, that's going to hurt Dixon because he's going to hold him up, and then if he pits now, he's going to lose some time.
Looks like Dixon's got a decent run of steam. Might not be enough to get him by turn 2.
And if I was Dixon now, I would pit him right away, otherwise he's going to lose too much time. And he's going to actually lose the position to Marco again, which Marco was ahead of him.
That could have been the signal right there, the dive down low that he's going to come. That's the universal signal. The guy, there he is, he's coming. So he made the move to show that he was coming. Now Now this is going to be the race between Marco and him where this all pans out. He got a little bit of a toe on that in-lap, so this might help a little bit.
Newgarden's in as well.
Well, Tony, you called him in, so this is an opportunity for Scott Dixon to do a little bit of damage management, knowing that they would have been held up by Zach Beach. We walk to see what kind of changes they're going to make on this car as well. He's been saying that they want to keep helping the front, but they did not have to do it with the wing this time. So there you go. That's the best we've seen in a while, 7.5.
The defending champion Joseph Newgarden was right in front of him, goes out right after him. Didn't see any changes for Newgarden, last year's champion, who's been the runner-up 2 times here in this race.
There it is. They've met each other again. Dixon getting up to speed, Marco at speed. We're going to have a drag race to turn 2.
This is how it happened in exactly this place last pit stop cycle when Andretti made an outside move on Dixon. He's going to go to the inside. He goes to the outside again. Same as the last cycle of stops.
Marco Andretti saying, this is my town, it's my position.
You know what Marco Andretti is saying? I'm not going for the championship and you are, you better lift.
Here is the race leader in Alexander Rossi and Will Power.
Look at how close they are.
This will be
how the gap is closed between Rossi and Power.
Andretti against Penske on the pit stops. The Penske guys have been a little bit slow, but Rossi really slow into the box, and he's real sideways.
Yeah, this is an opportunity for Power here. Plus, Rossi had to go around the tires. A couple of turns on the front brake. Rossi is back out racing with Max Chilton. That's not a concern. The guy to beat was Will Power, and Rossi hold station.
Chilton here in the mix. He doesn't need to be in the mix. This could get sketchy for Rossi. But he got into the box really sideways. I'm surprised they were able to get the fuel hose in, as these two now are racing.
Look at Ed Carpenter. Ed Carpenter in the fuzzy Chevrolet sweeps around the outside of Alexander Rossi.
Careful, 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 Rossi. You've got a huge lead. Let's not make any little mistakes, which cost you, as we see Will Power now making a move on Chilton. Bourdais now is our leader, who is yet to pit. Rossi running second, Power third, and Andretti fourth.
But that last stanza, that last segment, as we see Bourdais in, really helped Will Power immensely, with Rossi stuck behind Matthias Lace for, what, a dozen laps?
But also, you saw it, right? They pit right next to each other, and the Penske guys gave Rossi no room, and that's what happened there.
Well, we got an under review for pit stops on Rossi and Will Power. We don't know what this is about. Hose hanging way out there. He got kicked there by another guy, and it got run over by Power. So the Andretti guy kicked that hose to the side, and it knocked it out further, right in the path of Will Power.
TK, you're shaking your head. Why?
It was like, oh, the hose is out there. Oh, well, let's wait a couple seconds.
This will be interesting if they call a penalty on the Andretti crew for hanging that hose out there, and Will Power might. We'll watch this here. Watch this guy just walk along here. And
look, it just didn't even go for it.
Well, normally there's somebody on the inside of the pit wall that's pulling the hose in.
Well, I'll tell you what, that Penske hose is way out there too. Look at this hose right here. It was hanging way out over here into the other box. So both of these guys are playing games with the hose, and I think the Andretti guys saw that, hey, you're gonna hang that hose out on us, we're gonna hang it out on you.
You sound like a Canadian with all your hosing.
You're gonna do me, brother, I'll do you.
Exactly.
So, Ed Carpenter is the last car on the lead lap. Is he going to prove problematic for Alexander Rossi and allow Will Power to draw up close to the Napa Auto Parts Honda again? We will see as we've entered the second half of the ABC Supply 500. As we welcome you back to Pocono, did you catch up with the NASCAR Xfinity Series race on Friday night? Kyle Larson won in a thriller. And speaking of the Xfinity Series, Road America next weekend. That man there, Conor Daly, he'll be in the race for Roush Fenway Racing. And guess who will be racing against? Hall of Famer Bill Elliott. Yes, awesome Bill from Dawsonville takes on NASCAR's rising stars as the Xfinity Series heads to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. That's going to be well worth watching.
Should be fun for Conor Daly too, and really like his spirit of late. It's all about, you know, opportunity, seizing the moment of the day. He doesn't know where his next ride's going to be after that Xfinity opportunity. But Conor Daly really seems to be positive these days. You know, a couple years ago, it was sort of like, man, I'm not getting opportunity.
Exactly.
Now he's thankful for every chance he gets.
Look at Sebastian Bourdais on Scott Dixon. So this little trio is getting interesting and racy. Marco Andretti, Scott Dixon, Sebastian Bourdais. This is 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Yeah, Sebastian having a great run. This is a good track for him because it's a lot flatter than Texas. He likes this style, but Tony, I don't know if you knew this, he did not want to get in the car when they said they're going back to green.
I did.
Complained about the fence, and he said, I'm not going out there, and he reluctantly got back in the car.
As I was there, you know, we run the Drivers Association together. He came yelling at me saying, we got to do something, and then I was already getting in the car. Like, we got to race.
I want to take you back just to a few moments ago, some radio transmission between Marco Andretti and Brian Herter.
Let's make our number now, fuel 94. We're giving up a lot of pace, but all right. Yep, I got it. So you're P3. You got everybody else covered. First and second are too far ahead. We need a yellow to catch them up, so let's hold our position. Let's do fuel 94, and don't worry about those guys ahead right now.
Listen,
94 is hard. I understand, but you're doing it.
When Brian,
so you got this. Okay?
Brian Herta
You're doing a great
coaches you.
job. Fuel 94, we got him.
When Brian Herta coaches you on fuel save, you listen, because that's what delivered an Indy 500 win to Alexander Rossi. Now, Andretti is the first car to have pitted that's on the lead lap. So out of the top 8, he has the least amount of fuel in his car right now. That's why he has to conserve. And Jan, you hear the anxiety in Marco's voice about hitting that number.
Yes, and that is the reason why Brian Herta, you see, when they call him in, we saw it was a great move for track position because you come early and you gain the track position. But unfortunately, the benefit, or I should say, what makes that difficult, just as you say, Townsend, you've got to save a little bit of fuel to stay in that 5-stopper window. So you gain one on one end, but you lose it on the other. Right now, he's able to hit that code 94 fuel number and keep Scott Dixon behind him.
Well, there could have been some potential penalties which would have put him in the lead, but we're hearing now that both Rossi and Power, no action on the pit speed, on the pit violation. So more shenanigans in the pits with those guys, and Marco could be the leader.
But PT, there is a warning on the 12 for Power and perhaps a post-race race financial penalty. Kev, what have you got?
You see Joseph Newgarden back there. He slipped back behind that pack and has lost a few spots. Remember, starting second, back running in 6th right now. And that was one of the big question marks coming in because there were so many unknowns because there wasn't very much practice. When Tim Cindric asked him a few minutes ago, what are you dealing with right now? And he said, everything. Understeer, it's loose. And eventually Cindric said, okay, here's one, we need a caution. And 2, we're going to take a big swing at it next time. And if we do get a caution, get you packed back up, give you a chance to still be a real player in this race.
We talked about fuel for Marco Andretti. At the other end of the fuel window spectrum is Sebastian Bourdais. Of all of the front runners of the 8 cars on the lead lap, Sebastian Bourdais has the greatest flexibility. He has the most fuel to play with, TK. I think that's going to be really valuable down the stretch here in this race.
I mean, for him to take advantage of that, he's going to actually, you know, wait for everybody to pit and try to get that clean track. And if he's able to have a car in the tires at the end of his stint that will overcome the lap times of the other guys, he will definitely be ahead of Marco and Dixon.
He's running closer to anybody that I've seen in terms of distance. He's in the turn 2. He dipped a wheel under the yellow line. If we look here at this coming up to this next corner, he's definitely trying to get a low line and get a little bit of clean air on the front wing.
If he's smart enough, he's probably even saving more fuel now behind those guys and in the tires, waiting for them to peel off, and then he would hammer 3 or 4 laps extra, which I don't think will be that much, but he'll be able to gain all those positions.
So they're right on the yellow line, trying to get some clear air. This is his specialty, road course style. Sit, and then when the guys peel off, rip off some fast laps, but he's got a little bit of a toe right here.
Here we go. Bourdais getting close to Dixon, and Joseph Newgarden and Zach Veach not that far back either. Meanwhile, let's take you to the front of the pack, and there is only 1.4 seconds separating that yellow and blue Andretti Honda of Alexander Rossi and Will Power as Rossi attempts to lap Simon Pagenaud of Team Penske.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, Pagenaud will do no favors numbers for Rossi because he's going to try to help his teammate here if he can and stay on the lead lap.
It's pretty interesting to see a Penske getting lap in a race nowadays, you know. It's it tells you what, you know, with the least amount of practice that we had, only like, I would call even an hour yesterday, Towson. It was less than that.
Yeah. Well, you had an allocated hour, plus you had your 4 laps of qualifying.
Yeah, but then
right?
you do installation lap and you wait 10 minutes. By the time we left the pits was 40 minutes, really.
Sure.
But I got to say, everybody looks perfectly fine. You don't need the track time. Everybody's out there doing just fine. They're finding the balance. If anything, it's advantaged the non-Penske drivers because the Penske guys are the ones that seem like they needed the time of all teams.
You know, it's easy for you to say that you're up here, but I would say, you know, engineers, right? You give them 10 days in Indy, they have 10 different setups. You give them 1 hour, they will go straight to the point. So I agree with you, actually.
I like the roll-off the truck style racing that we have here. But I know most of the drivers would have liked to at least have 1 practice pit stop, maybe a little bit of warm-up.
Yeah, but we complain all the time. We're never happy.
That is true.
And they would have got it if it weren't for the rain. Yeah, late yesterday afternoon. So it's Rossi in power, just a single second separating first and second. Then back to this group, this interesting group of 5. "76 laps remain here at Pocono Raceway." I want to remind you that next week, Mika Monterey is happening, and nearly 40 hours of total content over the 5 days. Of course, it's the Pebble Beach Concord Elegance, a huge week over there in Monterey and on the West Coast. Wednesday, though, I want to tell you that our Townsend Bell and Steve Matchett are getting together for a live preview show at 8 Eastern on Wednesday. That's Mika Monterey. Countdown to the block. You and Mr. Mache.
A lot of cool cars out there in Monterey. A lot of supercars, TK. There's McLaren P1s, LaFerraris. It looks like your garage from 10 years ago.
From 10 years ago, now I have 4 kids. That's my garage. I have like scooters, skates, and you know, electric cars.
Minivans.
Minivan. Yeah, the other day somebody says, TK, I saw you driving a minivan downtown Indy. Was that you? I said, no, that wasn't me.
I got good news for you. Later in life, as Paul's demonstrated, it all comes back. The big player lifestyle. Don't worry.
That's true, man. You're my hero, PT. You were my hero before, and you're still my hero.
And guess what? He may be coming out of retirement next year. If Tony Stewart races the 500, PT said it's on.
You have my word. I will be one of your sponsors, whatever you want.
How about you be my trainer? I'll come to Miami.
Deal. I'll be your trainer, and I'll have my name in your car.
Tony, that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, back to the serious stuff, and Zach Veach was just told on the radio, hey, use your head, be patient. He tried to execute an outside move on Joseph Newgarden down into turn 2, and then thought the better of it. But the one thing that this young man has shown us time and again this year, he is not afraid to have a go.
Certainly not the first race of this year. Zach Veach, like a man possessed on the opening lap at St. Pete, Tony, and you remember that.
Oh yeah, it took me out.
Let's see what Veach can do here. He's not afraid to get low, tickle that yellow line a bit to get the front grip and see if he can get a run on Newgarden. Newgarden got a pretty good exit there.
Tell you what, Newgarden's got eyes in the back of his head. He knows exactly where he is, but Veach got a little run here. Not close enough now. But he's been very protective of the inside, wanting Veach to go the long way around. Marco now starting to pull away a little bit away from Dixon.
Meanwhile, back up front, Rossi seems content to let Pagenaud just kind of sit there on the tail end of the lead lap. There's Rossi, Pagenaud in the white shell car, the 22, and we're just a couple laps away from the pit stop window. Expect the first drivers to stop around 132.
Well, he's been out there dragging it around all by himself, and it's kind of hurt him on the fuel mileage to power. So Pagenaud's pace is good, and the power's not really closing in on him. So content to ride. A big piece of rubber there dropped down the track and hit the car as he pulled the tear off.
And Rossi has been trying to get by Pagenaud for a while, but now I think he's content to just go ahead and stay there because he was just told that Pagenaud is going to pit probably about 4 laps before you do. Now, as far as the championship goes, a lot of drivers, and you ask them, are you keeping an eye on someone else and the points and so forth? They normally give you you kind of a bland answer. Alexander Rossi was very honest. No, I am very much focused on where Scott Dixon is at, and I must finish ahead of Scott Dixon. So as he leads this race, Alexander Rossi is a huge fan of Marco Andretti, his teammate, who can really help him back there in third, holding off Dixon if he can. That's big points in the championship as Rossi tries to climb to the front.
Remember the Scott Dixon point lead at Mid-Ohio, mid-60s. Then it was mid-40s coming in here at Pocono. As they run right now, you can see it on the left, mid-20 points for Dixon over Rossi. By the time we get to St. Louis, TK, this thing could be very tight.
It could be tight, but also you have to remember, the last race of the year, it's double points. So, I mean, you know, if you have, anything can happen. My opinion, my take on the lead, guys, I think it's well known that Honda has a better fuel mileage than the Chevys. So Rossi probably is waiting for Pagenaud to pit, and then Rossi is going to be able to go longer than Power. With a good car like that, he's going to open his gap a little bit longer, and when he pits, he's still going to be ahead of Power.
Pagenaud just peeled off, so there is the clear track, and Rossi is now looking down the back of that second group of leaders as the Pagenaud hits the pit.
Yeah, and he was hanging out just in front of Alexander Rossi, trying not to go a lap down. He told the team, I'm doing everything I can do just to get some speed out of this 22 car, but nothing seems good enough today, guys.
Pagenaud, who spent time in his native France during these past couple of weekends off in Montmorillon to visit his dad, who got remarried, and go and see his mum at the family's beach house. As Alexander Rossi just takes that low line on Ed Carpenter. That wasn't a positional pass, of course. It was a lap down. Here is Marco Andretti. This has been a really promising day for the Herder Andretti Autosport team.
And it has, you can see on the upper left, it just clicked over to lap 133 to go. So that means he did pit on lap 132, which is the earliest that you can stop and save the 5-stop window. They put all the Sunoco fuel in that they could because they know they're teetering on the edge. Brian Herta has been continuing telling him, we've got to make the number. Even if you have to let Scott Dixon go by you, we've got to make the number.
Not a great stop. That was an 8-4, so the drag race will be when Dixon does his stop with Bourdais. Is going to go longer than both of them. Will Bourdais leapfrog over both of these guys? Will Dixon leapfrog? Or will it be another big race down to turn 2?
And what about Zach Veach and Joseph Newgarden? Yeah. How does that all shake out?
On board with Veach now. Let's take a little ride.
Leaders up there in front. We'll see if they peel off right here.
Starting to get a little tired.
Well, I think for Zach Veach, what I like is the confidence steering wheel.
That's his fuel alarm, so he's probably going to be pitting soon.
Pit this lap, pit this lap.
I was going to say, good call, TK. You know the wheels well and the warning lights well. I was going to say, the confidence of Zach Veach, he was tentative yesterday in practice working the front bar. Now, 135 laps into this race, he knows exactly what to expect out of the handling of his car. And that's a good sign for a rookie driver to have confidence, especially at the end of a tire stint. Let's see how he does coming to pit lane.
Well, he's came in with Newgarden.
Whoop! Almost lost it.
So again, it's a Team Penske versus Andretti Autosport pit stop duel. Young?
And last time Andretti Autosport had a very good time for Zach Veach. We watched carefully. They will probably not have to go to the front wing. Everything going smoothly. We watch at the same time Newgarden. They do go for a front wing change, and that delays Joseph Newgarden slightly. It looks like Newgarden will keep that spot.
The next two now to come in are going to be Dixon and Bourdais.
There's
think Bourdais
Marco.
can go longer. There's Marco. So he got beat out of the pits, so he's going to have to race these guys.
Marco's going to get Veach, it looks like, in turn 1. There's Dixon and Bourdais. There comes Alexander Rossi.
Race leader is in.
And we'll stay down.
Second last stop of the day for Alexander Rossi.
And both Power and Rossi pitted on the same lap, 104 last time, so Power goes a lap longer. We'll see if that has any impact. So that's a very simple, clean in. That means Power will have the easy in the next time around as well. Firestones and Sunoco fueling Rossi back out.
And again, no penalty on that last round of stops for Power or the 12. So a warning and maybe a monetary fine afterwards.
I think Andretti decided to pit Rossi so they don't pit those guys together to have the same thing happening. They already got a warning. And I have to say, Marco's stuck behind Newgarden. I think if Dixon put a couple good laps out, they're going to be good.
Power's in the pits. This is not good for Rossi. Zach Veach just passed him to get his lap back, and that could hold up Rossi on this whole exchange with Power.
And their teammates. There goes Dixon. So he had some clear space ahead. Let's watch this Penske stop.
So Power was talking about potentially a front wing adjustment. They're not going to do it, though. He said he's had some understeer, and he's also been a bit loose. Does he have a chance to pick up some track position here? Power races back out.
Man, he almost hit the Sunoco sign with a pit speed.
Look at the race. Here's the race. Will Power up to speed. Rossi at full speed.
Remember, Will Power is trying to win 3 Pocono races in succession. Here comes Rossi. He's already had a lap of up to speed. Can Power keep him behind?
He's got to back up. He's got to get a run on him through 2. He's too late to get him in 2, so he's got to get a run through here.
And this is strength to Will Power at the moment. Is this the shift in power in this race? Alexander Rossi has led 123 laps of the 137 thus far. Is this the turning point in this 500-miler?
And Rossi again had to contend with Zach Veach, who was already up to speed, and Marco Andretti lost a little bit on that exchange. And you could tell the urgency of the 12 Team Penske with that pit stop, and Power was giving it everything on the launch. He almost hit the cone at the end of pit lane with his burnout.
But see, that's what we're talking about. You beat a lap early, you get 1 clean lap, and he only had a 2.5 lead. Rossi only had a 2.5 lead and lost the lead, and I think it's going to be really tough for him to get it back.
But to the likes of Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden, and Alexander Rossi a year ago, they knew how good Will Power's in and out laps were last year. And again, Will Power has done it.
The good news is this is far from over. We've got a full pit stop remaining. We're going to see all of this play out one more time.
We've got a full pit stop and a full stint. So now we're going to see the Honda versus Chevy fuel mileage. If Rossi can draft off of Power and go a lap longer and reverse that running order.
Meanwhile, this is the 7th place Zach Veach in danger of being lapped. And Marco Andretti's not that far up the road either.
We've got Dixon now has cycled back to 3rd, May 4th. So the points lead now, with Rossi losing the lead, is now back to 39 points. The ebb and flow, every time there's a position change, the points change.
And you remember earlier in this race, it got down as low as 17 points, the difference between Dixon and Rossi. Smart play from Team Penske, from Will Power, good driving from both himself and Alexander Rossi. It is on, the final 60 laps.
Gonna get him.
That's it.
Power went high in turn 1.
55 laps to go here in Pocono. The ABC Supply 500, and just as we were going to break, sometimes timing doesn't work your way. It worked really well here for Alexander Rossi as he executed a pass on Will Power for the lead of the race.
Yeah, Will got a little bit of understeer with all that traffic in front, ran high in 1, which gave Rossi the opportunity to get a nice toe, made a nice clean move at turn 2. But right now, the way they sit, Tony, the smart play is for his teammates that are right in front of Rossi here to let him go by. There's Marco, Zach Veach, then Rossi. If I was Michael Andretti, I'd say, hey, let these guys by and then keep yourselves in between the two and give yourself a buffer.
Yeah, but Paul, just in front of Marco Andretti, you've got a Penske teammate and Joseph Newgarden that can factor. So not sure that there's a whole lot of benefit for Rossi to get by. Certainly if you're Marco and Veach, you're hoping for a yellow, which we haven't seen any since the very start of this race. And all of a sudden for Marco and Veach, you're back in with a chance.
For sure, for sure. I mean, that's a tough call because like you call it, tells it. I mean, yeah, he's going to clear his 2 teammates and he's going to get a Will's teammate in front of him.
There he goes. He went by Veach, so Veach let him go by in turn 2. So now he has a buffer in between.
Yeah, but he lost momentum. I think Will might get him.
Let's see if the silver Verizon Chevrolet of Will Power can get by Zach Veach, or will he make the Group 1001 Honda extremely wide?
size height-wise, but probably one of the strongest guys. You work so hard at your weights and training, and this kid's a tiny little kid.
But he came a long ways, and actually, funny enough, we came to Tassie. We stayed at Marco's house, and I made, and Zach was there. I made him try Marco's first go-kart suit, and actually he fit it.
We had it in our pre-race in IndyCar Live. We had that. I think Marco may seek redemption on you. Hey, if you've just joined us, there's been a lot going on, particularly at the start of this race. Check out at the back of the pack here, Spencer Pickett was hit by Graham Rahal. There was some confusion mid to late pack, and that was the outcome. And Spencer Pickett did come back out and complete a few laps after we went back green, but then he stopped very early on in this race. This was the most scary incident that you've seen in quite some time. Not this. This is Alexander Rossi going for the lead at the restart as he gets by Will Power. But watch this, going down into turn 2. Robert Wickens felt racy on Ryan Hunter-Reay. He collides, climbs the fence, into the catch fence, and just flung around. And there were 6 cars involved in this incident, including James Hinchcliffe, Robert Wickens' teammate. Now, I do need to tell you the most important thing is that IndyCar reported to us, Kurt Cavan, the Vice President of Communications, that Robert Wickens was alert and awake when taken to the medical chopper to be airlifted out to a hospital in Allentown. There was almost a 2-hour red flag to fix the fence. Hey, there's TK on the right of the screen with his teammate Matthias Leist and Marco Andretti and many others discussing what went down. And after that 2-hour red flag, we finally went racing again.
And the action was really fast and furious right away. Zach Veach going inside Newgarden and Will Power trying to make some moves. And then TK, unfortunately, this is your highlight or low light of the day. Talk us through this.
My highlight is here, man. I mean, yeah, we had a throttle failure, and I think sometimes bad things happen for a reason. I have to say I'm enjoying a lot up here. I'm not saying that I didn't want to be down there, but...
Oh, look at this. Marco makes the move on the highlight here on Dixon on the outlap. He is now fallen back behind Newgarden and Bourdais, but here we had an issue with the hose. Look at these hoses, both of them hanging way out of the box. Teams playing gamesmanship with each other. We're going to have after-race penalties. And then after the last round of pit stops, Will Power takes the lead, but here comes Rossi. He's been the dominant guy all day, gets a run, and a nice clean pass down into turn 2, and he's back in control with now a buffer from his teammate Zach Veach, who let him by for the lap.
So that gets you up to speed with exactly 50 laps to go. Final quarter of this race.
Well, he's now gotten by Marco, and now he's got 2 cars buffered, but he's got to deal with Newgarden, and Newgarden will not make it easy for him to lap him.
No, Newgarden needs to keep Rossi behind if he can. Oh, big wiggle from Newgarden. Got low on the yellow line. Rossi should have a run here. Joseph Newgarden got way too much of the yellow line. Almost got turned around.
Joseph looking to protect here. He's still got a little bit of a draft.
That was dicey.
Carlin's Max Chilton is the driver they're trying to get by. There's less than 2 seconds now between Alexander Rossi and Will Power. We'll keep an eye on that gap.
He's got push at turn 1 and a little bit of wiggle loose as he was close to the back of Chilton. And Rossi gets another look at him here going into 2.
Max Chilton's 2 laps down. Newgarden was trying to figure out how to use some clean air and use some of that yellow line to get the front grip, TK, and it almost just got away from him.
Yeah, I mean, that corner is tricky, right? If you put your wheel under the yellow line, there are some rubber strips that actually can upset the car. One, I mean, very interesting factor, man. Scott Dixon is almost 30 seconds behind Power. If Rossi's able to clear Newgarden, then he's going to catch those guys, man, and put them a lap down if it doesn't go yellow here.
It's 43 seconds a lap in race mode around this 2.5-mile super speedway, and Dixon 30 seconds back on Alexander Rossi.
I just don't think Power's car is as good in traffic as Rossi's. Rossi's able to run and get up on guys. I know he got a little bit of a gift probably from his teammates, made it easy for him, but he's really been the only guy that's been able to stay up close and make some passes.
Jan, I wonder what some of these teams are thinking, all running in a group right now with 1 pit stop left. Going to be the first one to come in and have clean air on the outlap, or hang out and have clean air before you pit?
Well, I think oftentimes, Townsend, what you're looking for is to do the opposite of that who you are following. So when you're the leader, you have to make that choice, and then behind they will do the opposite. Again, you want clean air. We've seen people, as Tony was suggesting, if you can go longer, you have an opportunity to run clean air and jump them. But you also have the opportunity to duck out, as we've seen earlier today, like Scott Dixon you see on the screen now. He made an earlier pit stop and then came back in clean air and did it on the second way. So you have the undercut, you have the overcut, and I think both are options.
Yeah, you have the uncertainty, Paul, of not knowing when people are going to pit.
Well, we know Power's got a one-lap advantage on Rossi. Whether Rossi can make that back and they pit on the same lap, we'll wait and see if that happens. But I don't think that Rossi's going to want to pit earlier than Power and lose that advantage. He's got to build a bigger gap to Power and have more time advantage, like 2-3 seconds like he had, to negate that one-lap advantage.
Plus, let's see how it plays out with traffic too, right? Because Will doesn't have a clear path ahead just now, like he did last time, to be able to stay out a lap longer and get the advantage on Alexander Rossi.
So the guys are working lap 156 now. We would expect pit stops around lap 166, 167.
Guy we haven't talked about much all day, other than at the beginning, is Bourdais. He was having a great run. He was very unhappy with the fence repairs and refused to get into the car. Had a little bit of an argument with his engineer, Craig Hampson, about getting back in the car. And he did, as we see Dixon gets by black and green car right there. But Charlie, he's having a nice day. This is a great run for him.
TK, thank you so much. Tony Kanaan, series champion, Indy 500 winner. Thanks for coming up and playing with us for a while.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you very much.
And we wish you a great run next weekend at Gateway in St. Louis. And there's some promising signs there, and let's hope you can get your best result of the season.
Thank you. I hope I won't see you guys this year again.
Hey, good luck on the 4 kids.
Find
something to do in the offseason.
Give Lauren all our best.
I will. Thank you.
There he is, Tony Kanaan from AJ Foyt Racing. And this one, I think, is building to a really interesting finish. You're watching the ABC Supply 500 here on your home of motorsport, NBC, SN, Lee Diffie, Paul Tracy, Townsend Bell. It's great to have Tony Kanaan up here for quite a while and get his insight on this race. Look at the leader, Alexander Rossi. Once he has cleared traffic, PT, he is taken off.
He's absolutely flying, and he just turned a 41.9, which is one of his quickest laps of the race and one of the quickest laps of the race overall. He's went from a 1.5-second lead to nearly 6 seconds in the span of 3 laps. So once he's gotten the clean air, his car is just an absolute rocket ship.
And he is not that far off lapping Sebastian Bourdais in 4th and Scott Dixon in 3rd. Can you believe that?
Zach Beach now just got passed by Will Power, so he's had to give up that position, but he's still got Marco in front of him and a couple of other lap cars.
The sky's getting pretty dark out there, guys.
Well, it's getting dark because it's late in the day. It's almost time to go to bed for me soon.
You already had 2 naps today. Look at Bourdais. Sebastian Bourdais got a great race car out there right now. He seems to work traffic pretty well. There goes Dixon around Carpenter. Kevin, what do you know?
Well, Alexander Rossi really turned up the wick the last few laps. That's how he was able to stretch out that lead once he got through some traffic. Now he's turning it back down just in case there's any need to save some fuel, but really not much of a need to save fuel. In fact, they're already in the window. He could stop right now and could save fuel and make it the rest of the way. I'm told the Hondas could go, if they had to, 37 laps on a tank. So we're very easily in the window. If it's a yellow, they'd all pit, one last stop. So really, that's what it's about now. Execution, that final stop, no mistakes. And Alexander Rossi should be home free.
Got a car peeling off to the pit lane there.
It's laced. Mateus laced. Pits from the 10th position. By the way, many of you at home may be wondering, do we have any updates on the health status of Robert Wickens? The answer is no, not at the moment. We're endeavoring to get more to find out anything more from the hospital in Allentown, Pennsylvania, but nothing as yet. So as soon as we hear anything, if we do, we will relay it to you.
I'm more and more impressed. The last 2 races, Townsend, this guy is he's just gotten patient with the traffic. Like last week, he was out there on his own on his fuel mileage, and he had some lap traffic in front of him. He didn't panic, he didn't get upset. He just sits there and waits. And once he gets clear, he just starts going so quick, and he's just gone to another level.
Yeah, I really feel like it was Watkins Glen last year where Alexander Rossi kind of ticked the final box in terms of the checklist of being ready to win a championship, beating Scott Dixon under huge pressure. He's been so fast on every type of track. As Conor Daly gets high, there's the yellow.
There's a yellow.
Maybe not.
Stops. Maybe
they don't like to throw yellows in this series
but
these
hopefully
days.
he'll pull off and not cause a yellow.
Hit this lap, saw you with the pancake. Good job on the detail lane.
Very smart driving by Conor Daly not to lose control of that car.
You can see it coming. You get up in that gray, and just no way to recover once you get that high, and it's forklifting its way back to pit lane.
Just pushed right off the corner.
Similar incident at the start of the race. Conor Daly brushed the wall and continued.
Yeah, he was just high up in the gray there and just lost it. Stepped out on him right at the very end and caught the back and broke the toe link. A little bit of debris on the track. A piece went flying down the track, but good job to not spin. Right, oh, you got to run on a car, and went inside and just overcooked it. Big draft and just pushed right off the corner.
I'll bet nobody is rooting Conor Daly on more than Alexander Rossi from back there to try to keep things together.
And while we see the Harding racing car, we would be remiss if we didn't make a special mention to IndyCar legend Al Unser Jr., who lost his former wife Shelley Unser earlier this week, the mother of his children. Al is a consultant to Harding Racing, so we are thinking of you.
I tell you what, the lead is rapidly shrunk again. All the lap cars are out of the way. Will Power's back to now 1.9 seconds behind. Look, he's back in the picture here. He was up to 6 seconds a minute ago, and now he's clawed that back in a big time fashion. Does he have some speed on this next stop? He's got to be close on this next stop. If he goes a lap further, it might put him back in front.
Now, for Will Power and chasing Alexander Rossi, you just see that blue car at the bottom of your screen. That's Ed Jones. I don't think Ed Jones is going to make it very easy for Alexander Rossi to get by virtue of being Scott Dixon's teammate. So Power might get some help here. If he can get by Kimball, this thing could tighten up at the end. And we still have pit stops left.
The pit window has now opened, and as expected, Marco Andretti is the first to take that opportunity, because we know consecutively, as Joseph Newgarden is on a similar cycle for trying to get to the end. Both these cars a lap down, but trying to get the stop done and get up to speed as quickly as possible.
You know, Rossi was right behind that deal with Conor Daly. I wonder if he checked up and thought there was a yellow coming for sure. And he might have slowed down and it didn't go yellow, and then he lost his big lead. So he might have anticipated that going full course. Yeah, look at this.
So Newgarden building to speed. Sebastian Bourdais already in the groove. So when are our top two going to pit? Jan?
Well, we wait for the top two. In the meantime, we walk Zach Beach. We know that he's played potentially into the strategy here. But we saw that was a nice stop at 7.8. But remember, he's played in this race by the way he conducted himself around traffic, specifically with the leader.
And the leader is in.
Coming in with big speed.
And same as the last cycle, Will Power stays out.
So that means it's an easy in for Alexander Rossi. Last pit stop of this 500-mile race as he tries to win his second 500-miler and his second in a row here in 2018 and take a chunk out of the championship. Sunoco Fuel 4 Firestone, clean last shot. We'll wait and watch Power to come in.
No pit speed limit. He's in the last box. He can accelerate full chat. Now we're going to wait for Power to come. As Dixon comes down the pit lane, we're waiting on Power next.
Yes, you're waiting on Power, but in between, we're going to see a pit stop for Scott Dixon. They've been checking their fuel probe after that last stop. They say they think everything is okay, but we're going to watch the fuel delivery to be sure that, in fact, it does do the job. Yes, they get it full. Wow, 6.3 seconds for Dixon.
Great stop from Chip Ganassi Racing and the PNC Bank Honda for Scott Dixon. And look at that, nice clear track for him to drive the way he wants. Meanwhile, Alexander Rossi, here's Will Power. We're waiting for Power to make his way in.
Oh, lap traffic in front of him, that's gonna hurt.
This time was...
Oh, he got high. He got way high. That's going to cost him a ton of time. He got up in the gray when he caught up to the back of Chilton. That's going to cost him a ton of lap time.
Is that going to be the difference in the end of this race? Remember, going for 3 in a row here at Pocono.
And 3 500-mile races in a row. No one's done that since Bobby Unser in 1981. Last time, he jumped Rossi on the pit sequence for a moment. He said, my car is great in clean air. It can't do anything in traffic. Watching for Rossi. Look at the front wing adjustment. Will Power as Rossi screams down the front straightaway. Who's been on the race into turn 1?
Not going to be very close. There goes Alexander Rossi.
Long gone. He might even lose a position to one of the other guys, but he caught Chilton right at the corner and went super, super high in the gray. And once you get in the gray here, Townsend, you're lucky not to put it in the wall, which was a good save, but man, that cost him a ton of time.
This is not what he needs. That's Charlie Kimball going back by Will Power.
But now he's got 2 cars to deal with, Ed Jones and Charlie Kimball.
Rossi has clear road, open track. Power now stuck in lap traffic. And here we go. Look at this. He's right up the back of Chilton. Understeers, gets high. He's in the gray, and he's just slowing down, slowing down, slowing down, slowing down to avoid hitting the wall, which was a smart move, but cost him 6 seconds.
Not only is he trying to save the car, he's just trying to make it to pit lane at that point, coming off 3 in the marbles.
Alexander Rossi. He has spoken openly about his desire to get Scott Dixon for the championship. Today is going to be massive. On a day here in the Poconos where we didn't think we might get this one in, whether it be for the threat of rain or for the extended red flag period due to the catch fence needing to be fixed after Robert Wickens went right up into the catch fence and is still in a Allentown, Pennsylvania hospital. Well, now we've only got 24, almost 23 laps left to run.
Still getting out close to that wall, Townsend. He's driving his own race, running his own laps, pushing it to the limit, and look at that lead. He's got about 3/4 of the straightaway of the lead now. Will Power has gotten clear of that lap traffic, and maybe he can claw him back, but right now, as we look at Bourdais, Rossi has been the fast man all day.
Sebastian Bourdais has had a really productive day, Katie, and I think his team boss, Jimmy Vassar, Sully Sullivan, and Dale Coyne will be delighted.
I would hope so, because Dale, earlier, Sebastian did not want to climb back in the car, and now he's battling for a podium position. What's the word over the radio right now?
No, he's just trying to run down Dixon and try to get that podium position, but he's passionate. He cares about all these guys and wants a safe track, but he's also professional and flipped the switch and he's after it.
Yeah, so how do you convince a guy like that to climb back in and focus forward?
He talked to Kyle, or before he was getting in the car, he talked to Kyle, and Kyle assured him that everything was done right, and he got back in.
Turned in a bad day, and it certainly has turned around now, guys.
Well, Sebastian Bourdais could really, he could really factor into this, because if Rossi catches Bourdais and struggles a bit to get by, because Bourdais got a fast car, Will Power, all clean air, so, and then you got Scott Dixon, who's certainly not going to want to let Rossi by.
When you heard Dale Coyne there say that Sebastian spoke with Kyle, it was race director Kyle Novak.
And we were wondering when he was sitting on the golf cart, who's he on the phone with for that long? Who's the conversation with his engineer? Is it with his wife? What's he going to do? And we know now it was with the chief steward of the series, Kyle, and Kyle was talking him off the ledge.
Look at this. Newgarden, Andretti, and Veach.
Good racing right here. These guys are all racing for positions here, so.
This is 5, 6, and 7. As they're kind of caught in behind Matheus Leist, who has been edged out of the top 10. The young Brazilian, the teenager, has been running in the top 10 for the majority of the day in his AJ Foyt entry. Hey, speaking of AJ Foyt and legends, I want to say happy recent 85th birthday to the man, Parnelli Jones.
They got a run, big run by Veach there, and he slices right by his teammate.
Marco Andretti came off of turn 1, high and out of shape, had to pedal it. That allowed Veach to get a run. Marco's going to try to return the favor. Now here. Simon Pagino's in the conversation.
Veach trying to break the draft. A little too far back for Marco there, but Pagino is clawing his way back to Andretti, getting back in the mix. He's been struggling with handling all day.
one point in this race, not that long ago, it was looking promising for Marco Andretti to potentially finish in the top 3. It's kind of drifted away from him a little bit on this final stint.
Up front, Rossi's 8-second lead, now down to 7.
41.9 for Rossi that last lap into a 41.6 for Power, so he's edging back in, but he's got a long way to catch back up, and Rossi's just been so consistent lap time wise, and just maintaining his gap and not panicking when he gets too far, when he gets behind. He's really played this thing smart.
What do you think a tough guy like Parnelli Jones would make of Alexander Rossi? I think he'd be impressed.
I think Parnelli would very much respect the driving style of this young American, and I think part of the reason for that, even though born and raised in California, from a racing standpoint, Rossi cut his teeth in the relentless, unforgiving world of European racing in his pursuit of Formula One, and that'll harden just about anyone.
Yeah. 7.7 seconds is the difference between first and second, with 18 laps remaining here at Pocono. And thank goodness the weather has been on our side. Still plenty of cloud cover above, but looking good to finish this one off with just 3 races left on the season. You're watching NBCSN's coverage of IndyCar, brought to you by Tag Heuer, official timepiece of the IndyCar series, and by Bobby Rahal Automotive Group. Visit us at bobbyrahal.com for all your automotive needs in Pennsylvania. And this is Graham Rahal as we welcome you back to Pocono, as the line is starting to drop late in the day with 13 to go. And it's been a bit of a slog for Graham Rahal, unfortunately. Qualifying didn't go to plan. The start of the race didn't go to plan, and it's been a bit of a grind. Let's go to Robin Miller.
Okay, you heard Kevin and TK talking about Honda's mileage. This is going to be the first year they ever win the Manufacturers' Championship, boys, because Chevrolet has completely dominated. But right now, Team Penske's on their 5th and 6th engines. You only get 4 engines before their points are no longer counted. So pretty much Honda's got like almost a 300-point lead after Rossi's victory. He hangs on here with 12 laps to go. So it'll be the first time since Chevrolet joined the series that Honda's going to be the manufacturer's champion.
Little wiggle out of Alexander Rossi in turn 1, Robin. Thanks for the update there. I think this is where things start to get a little tricky for Rossi, catching the cars of Dixon and Bourdais that are fast, and fast enough to make it difficult for Rossi to get by. His 7.5-second gap is dropping to Power now as he gets by Max Chilton, but I think it'll be much more difficult with the next 2 cars ahead.
Yeah, these 2 guys are not going to want to let him by. They don't really have to let him by, but with 13 laps to go, and he's only losing right now half a second, couple tenths a lap to Power, who's running in clean air. He could claw that back down, but does he have a good enough handling car to get by?
Well, and the question I think really is, do you want to risk giving Power a chance? Or do you want to just try and take the risk to eliminate the chance?
So I tell you what, Paul, it's coming down in rather substantial chunks, because it's already down now. It wasn't on the last lap, it was over 7 seconds. It's now down to 5.8. So we'll continue to monitor that.
Yeah, the last lap for Rossi when he passed Chilton was a 43.2, and Power's lap was a 41.9. So big chunk on that lap alone.
5.6 seconds now. 10 to go. Alexander Rossi has led 170 laps today.
The key, I think, Diff, is to look at the pace of Dixon and Bourdais, 42.2-second laps. That pretty much dictates what Rossi's pace is going to be if he decides to just kind of hold court there in the position and let the gap close.
Well, you don't want to
methodically.
You don't want to close the gap too close to Bourdais. If you're going to sit station, you definitely want to keep the tires under you. You start getting up close and using your front tires harder. They go away quicker, and then you run into handling problems if Power is able to catch it.
One thing's for sure, Power needs to get by Chilton, and frankly, Chilton needs to get out of the way and let Power by. He's 4 laps down right now. Power can't afford to have what happened on the last pit stop round, which was then he caught Chilton and had to really check up. So right now, Power needs to get by if he's got any chance.
And that distance between first and second remains steady at 5.6 seconds. 9 laps to go, not even that really. 8 and a bit.
Looking at the laps as they cross the line, it was a 42-1, 42.
There goes the call. Max Chilton's spotter just let him by. Did he lose too much in that sequence? 6-second gap, 8 laps to go. You got to hustle now, Paul.
He lost 0.8 of a second on that lap to Rossi. It was a 42.9 to Rossi's 41.9 or 42.1. So it's going to be a tough job for him to close that gap on just pace alone right now.
Yesterday, this man here, Will Power, drew level with his Verizon P1 pole award, drew level with AJ Foyt for second on the all-time pole list. As Kevin told you earlier, no driver has won 3 consecutive 500-mile races since 1981 when Bobby Unser did it. Well, guess what? No driver has won 3 500-mile races at the same track in the history of IndyCar racing. That's what lies between Will Power and Alexander Rossi. 6 seconds with 7 laps to go.
Let's see what this lap time is. Power still 2 corners to go. Watching that gap carefully. Rossi was really able to match Power on the last lap, but Power was recovering from the Chilton traffic. Here comes Power through turn 3. There's Rossi on the front stretch. That gap looks pretty steady to me.
41.9 for Rossi. Power crosses the line at a 41.7, so 2/10, but 2/10 is not enough. He needs to be carving these laps about a half a second to 0.8 quicker if he's going to have a chance to even get to the back of Rossi.
Power had the opportunity and the honor of throwing out the first pitch several days ago at the Phillies when the Phillies played the Mets. I think we mentioned yesterday in the qualifying show he thought about doing an underarm pitch. And he said, the Phillies were open to it, he said, but I didn't. I did it properly. Well, he's done it properly today, but this man here, Alexander Rossi, has just been that one little step better.
Tell you what, he's been coming on strong all season long. He's had a couple little hiccups. You know, if Elkhart Lake, he hadn't had that camber adjuster problem, that was his worst finish of the year, a 16th when he was up front. If he had got a solid top 5 there, we'd be looking at a much tighter points race.
You know, we talk a lot about the growth of Alexander Rossi's skill set in IndyCar and kind of these dominant performances. Let's not forget the impact on Rossi's career when Jeremy Millis showed up at the team.
It's his race engineer.
His race engineer after doing so much with Joseph Newgarden at ECR and coming over to Andretti. I mean, Rossi, I can remember vividly how happy he was after the first test with Jeremy Millis a couple years ago. He said it's a whole new world now. He was just thrilled at the performance gains.
And let's not lose sight of this either. The dynasty is here, the Andretti dynasty. Mario, Michael, and Marco are here. Home, which is Nazareth, is just 25 miles down the road. And this man, Alexander Rossi, could deliver Michael Andretti a joyous victory here at his home track.
And a great weekend overall for the whole team. All the cars other than Hunter Ray was out early. We got his son Marco in 7th. Zach Veach, one of his best races of his career so far, in 6th. All the cars running strong all day.
We also have to note the exceptional kind of damage limitation for Scott Dixon. Remember, not only did he start 13th in this race, while all his championship competitors started up front, Scott Dixon also narrowly avoided disaster there with the big accident and all the debris.
It's another story of just how rock solid, another example, I should say, of how rock solid Scott Dixon is. So the lead was 46 points coming into today's 14th round of the championship. It will get trimmed to 29, heading to Gateway at St. Louis next weekend. So the numbers will tick down for just 2 to go, 5 miles left, 3.2 seconds between Alexander Rossi and Will Power. But things look pretty stable, don't they? Rossi had that pole to victory lane win at Long Beach earlier this year. Absolutely dominated all day long, and he is the most recent winner after that fabulous race at Mid-Ohio where we saw so much passing. That hasn't been the case today, but there's still been plenty to chew on. 1 lap to go, 2.5 miles. And that's the voice of Rob Edwards, the Chief Operating Officer of Andretti Autosport, oversees all of Andretti's racing operation, and is the man in the ear of this guy here, Alexander Rossi.
Raindrops now finally coming onto the camera. We knew it was going to rain at some point, but what a day.
What a day. And he notches up another one at a different circuit, another victory at a different circuit. Alexander Rossi will spoil the Will Power three-peat, but he gets another win. Rossi wins in Pocono. His 3rd win on the season and 5th career win. And as far as the season is concerned, back-to-back, it's Mid-Ohio and Pocono for Rossi.
Still got a battle back here. Raindrops still on that camera, but Bourdais has been just hounding Dixon for literally half the race, but it looks like Dixon's got the measure of him, and Bourdais reluctantly got in the car today, was very upset, visibly shaken before the restart, and comes home in a really solid 4th place on an oval.
Scott Dixon, the championship leader, will stand on the podium after starting 13th. And Sebastian Bourdais, a fine drive as well, to be in the top 5 in 4th. But boy, oh boy, that's back-to-back victories for Alexander Rossi to really keep his championship hopes alive. Just 29 back from Scott Dixon now.
Big momentum swing, Townsend, and it's all about momentum in this series. It goes back and forth and ebbs and flows, and right now, these Andretti guys have got the momentum.
Well, before Mid-Ohio, we said that somebody to catch Dixon needed to start a run, and boy, has Alexander Rossi lit up that run with fury, because he's, 2 wins on the trot here, and both of them, as Michael Andretti looks on, and he realizes that Michael's like, hey, we are contenders in this championship. In fact, you could argue we're the strongest horse in this race.
I think Michael was talking to the Team Penske guys there. They both had a few little smiles. It was a strong competition. Michael's men, the driver, win out in the end. And I have to say, despite a 2-hour red flag period or just thereunder, these fans, a lot of IndyCar fans in the Pennsylvania area, and they've been loyal. They've hung out. They've hung in there.
Notice Rossi did not attempt any donuts this time.
No, not after the hiccup, shall we call it, at Mid-Ohio, where the donut turned into more of a half-spin, flick spin, and he high-centered the car.
And joking aside, I think that's really out of respect to Robert Wickens, as we all still await word on his situation.
And I think, as we heard during that lengthy break, that Alexander will say, yes, that win is good, and yes, I've helped my championship chances, but I'll still be thinking about Robert Wickens. 5th career win, 3rd win on the season. This 26-year-old Californian just goes from strength to strength. He wins the ABC Supply 500. Our man Kevin Lee is down there in victory lane.
Let him celebrate with the Napa Andretti Autosport crew, about as dominating as a race as we've seen in a while. And by the way, we just said that 3 weeks ago when he won at Mid-Ohio, but this time 180 laps led on the oval. 3rd win of the year, matching Newgarden and Dixon. Alexander Rossi has picked up 41 points on Dixon in the championship just in the last 2 races. His girlfriend Kelly there with just a dominant drive here today. Scott Marks, that's his crew chief. Alex, impressive drive. I want to go back to really the only drama you had during this race. After the 4th pit stop, Will had gotten by. You got him back pretty soon. Tell us about that sequence and how you got back to the lead.
Yeah, we just we came out in some traffic, and it was really hard to be behind cars for some reason today. But the 27 Napa Auto Parts Honda was better than everyone else. So it's an exceptional day, but right now, I mean, Rob and James and everyone involved in that, Ryan, on our thoughts, and it's tough to really celebrate after what happened.
You have now won 2 500-mile races and a driver with a road course background with no oval experience until you got to IndyCar in 2016. How are you so good at these kind of races?
It's a team, man. I mean, I have amazing teammates. Speaking of teammates, I mean, Zach and Marco really helped me out there in traffic. So I owe them a beer or a case of beer or something like that. But it's just been leaning on Ryan and Michael and Brian ever since day one to help me really overcome the challenge that is super speedways. And you can't do any of this without an amazing team. So very thankful to be on Andretti Autosport and had these great group of people, and it's a special day today.
3 weeks ago, 2 races ago, you were 70 points back. Now you're within 29 with 3 to go. Can you win the championship?
We're gonna try, man. We're executing like we've said we need to do on Sundays, and we'll do everything we can to keep that rolling. There's no time to rest now. We're in Gateway in 5-6 days.
Well done.
Thank you.
Alexander Rossi dominates at Pocono.
And surrounded by the Andretti Autosport team, and some lovely thoughts from Alexander Rossi in regards to Robert Wickens, but also crediting these guys. His team got him to victory lane, back-to-back wins. We continue the racing for you here on NBCSN. We'll probably finish up at about 1/4 the hour, around 7:15 Eastern. We want to hear from some more drivers. And then, if you didn't catch it, there is a NASCAR Bristol encore from last night. There was some terrific racing, both in the Xfinity race and the Cup race last night. So there's NASCAR Bristol encore, and that is coming up as we continue the debrief here at Pocono Raceway, and we head to Robin Miller.
Well, Will Power came as close as you can to winning 3 in a row. Hell of a try, brother. But the pivotal point for you in the race was your last pit stop.
Yeah, that was. That's when I actually thought we'd be able to jump him again, but I got caught up with a lapped car and coming out in an out lap and almost went to the wall and came back and then had a misshift on the out lap. I mean, it's just a terrible exchange altogether. So, you know, that's why it was. We weren't quite good enough in traffic. Rossi was very good running in traffic. We just had way too much push. So, yeah, that's all we could do. I mean, the guys did a great strategy. We went long. That's how we jumped him. And then kind of weren't good enough in traffic. But great day to the Verizon guys.
When you got ahead of him that time, then you had a problem, and it looked like maybe going into 2, and he got a big run.
Yeah, into 1, out of 1 was my biggest problem. Like the push off of 1 is where I had just bad exits for a couple laps, and he just got a good run. And you know, what do you do? I mean, if you block down there, you know, you're both going to 2, and it's just a bad corner, so it's just a hard situation. So I kind of, you know, didn't make a big deal of it.
81 points behind, 3 races to go.
Isn't it unbelievable? Like, I've had 2 really good results, and Scott Dixon just keeps finishing behind me. Like, this guy is just he just never has a bad day. So, I mean, in the last 3 races, I need him to have a bad day to even have a shot. But we've been running strong.
All right, thanks, Will. Leon, Scott Dixon.
Well, of course, those are some interesting words coming from Will Power. Said Scott Dixon never has a bad day. He was hoping that he was going to have an opportunity to capitalize. You started 13th today and managed to rally and get back on the podium. You said it was a tough day in the office.
Yeah, it was very tough. I thought he was still angry at me about you know, calling him out on the initial start, which I'll apologize for that now. But yeah, it was definitely tough for us. You know, we tried to go off strategy, then we got caught with Marco. It was extremely tough to pass, and then you know, we were kind of in that fuel save mode and off sequence, and it all got a bit weird, and our pace was really slow, but nobody was really going anywhere. It was bizarre, apart from the first 2 that checked out that weren't held up in that pack. So, you know, the PNC Bank car, we got the most out of it. We struggled with a lot of understeer from lap 1. I don't know how many turns of front wing we put in this thing. We put a ton in, but we did okay today on points. But obviously took a big hit to Rossi again. Congrats to him. You know, he's driving fantastically at the moment. We're going to need to have him to have a bit of a snafu and slow his roll here quickly. But you know, congrats to everybody on the team. You know, it was a good savior of points for today.
All right, well, that's a great perspective, and now knows that 29-point deficit, he's going to have to push. Lee?
And reiterating what Scott said, I apologize to Will Power for calling him out on the start, but yeah, well aware of how Alexander Rossi is zeroing in on him. Hey, and the weather stayed away.
Yeah.
How lucky were we? How lucky were we as the crowd has dispersed. We thank them for sticking around during this elongated day. We're not done yet. Stick around. We'll hear from more. Celebrations continue for Alexander Rossi and the 27 team, the Napa Auto Parts crew. Wow, they're getting used to this winning feeling, aren't they? And some credit to the crew. Remember, Alexander said in his post-race interview, Victory Circle interview, I owe it to the team. It's all about the teamwork, and they've got the mojo at the moment. Let's hear more from some other drivers. Here's Katie.
And Lee, Sebastian Bourdais ended the day in 4th place, but we saw him on the phone with race director Kyle Novak before we went back racing. Sebastian, what ultimately led to your decision to get back in the car?
You know, I'm old, but I'm not wiser, I guess. You know, everybody's in the seat and you gotta go. So I wasn't happy with it at all. I mean, the construction guys said thumbs up, but I'm glad nobody tried it because I'm not quite sure that would have been satisfactory. So it's just those tough moments, you know. Obviously, when we saw the extent of the damage, I kind of had a pretty good idea that I wasn't gonna get fixed properly, and it wasn't. All the cables were loose, and it was just like, it was pretty lousy. So I wasn't very happy about it.
Let's go ahead and get back to the racing because there were some good battles out there. We thought maybe you were going to catch Scott Dixon there at the end. Did you have anything else for him?
Well, you know, it's a tough spot, obviously, right? I mean, we're both on the Honda stable. He's fighting for the championship, and it was so hard to pass anybody today. Your only chance was, you know, for the guy in front to get checked up and wash out or something, and you getting a run. That's how I got Veach. That's how I got a couple of guys. But you know, Scott's so smart, and he's got so much experience. He'd back up the corner every time he'd feel in the strat and get a good run out. So there was no way past. Like, he didn't put a wheel wrong the whole day.
And Sebastian Bourdais ended up 4th, but Kevin's with the guy that ended 5th.
And the day started with a lot of promise for Joseph Newgarden on the front row, and listening to your scanner and your radio throughout the day. Understeer, oversteer, it sounded like it was a handful.
Yeah, it was just a tough day. You know, we didn't have anything for anybody. We were scrapping to keep that top 5. That was the big thing for us. So I was trying my butt off. I think the team was trying everything they could to help me, and that's just all we had. So yeah, we could come back next time. You know, unfortunately with the Hitachi car we didn't have the speed, but Will looked like he gave Rossi a good run for his money, which was great. Just not enough. So we'll look at everything. You know, it's always tough right after this type of race. You don't have all the facts. You want to go back and dig through the data and try and figure out, you know, what you can do better next time. So that's what we'll do. But you know, thankful that all the fans stuck around to watch this race, and you know, we'll work hard for these last 3 now.
Almost 190 laps after the long delay of green flag racing. How difficult is that? And is it even harder when you're trying to make your car better that there's no cautions to kind of regather?
Yeah, it is harder. You get, you know, shuffled back, and then you can't recover. So we lost a lot of ground that we couldn't recover. Big thing is I couldn't get by anybody. I just could not make any moves on anybody, and that really set me back. I might have been able to keep up if I could have cleared some traffic, but I couldn't do that. So that was the tough part today. But yeah, it wears on you. My right side's pretty worn out after 190 laps, but you know, that's all right. Sometimes that's how it goes.
Hung in there and got a 5th, and he goes back to a place with fond memories, Gateway last year, next Saturday night, where he won.
Kev 3rd in the championship points, 66 back. And there we go. There's Scott Dixon and Will Power having a little chat. The trio will stand on the podium with the winning team owner and the local lad to the left, Mike Landretti. Just wrapping up here at Pocono, but the Verizon IndyCar Series has 3 races in a row as Alexander Rossi gets that huge victory trophy just above his head. It's the Bommarito Automotive Group 500, Saturday night from St. Louis at Gateway. Coverage begins at 8 Eastern right here on NBCSN. The boys are tired, understandably so. 200 laps of the tricky triangle. Updated points, we've been talking about this a lot already, from 46 down to 29, and PT, that is right on Scott Dixon's mind.
Oh, absolutely. You heard him. He said he's got to stop his flow, and Rossi, Townsend is the man on the move. He's got the momentum, and Newgarden slipped today big time. Powers recovering from a couple of the accidents he had earlier in the year.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta love how this championship is shaping up. Those top 4 gonna factor, I think, through the last 3 races, no doubt.
All right, so 3 to go as we head down and catch up with Jan.
Yes, and a great day for Zach Veach, getting his best ever career oval finish at a 6. That's 3 top 10s in a row for you. but it could have been even better if he didn't have that issue with the front wing adjuster. How much of an issue was that in the race?
Yeah, I mean, first off, thoughts are with Robert Wickens, but, you know, that bit of crash that we had at the first start of the race, it actually ripped off the front wing adjuster that we had. So our plan was to start conservative, less front wing than normal for the first stint to make sure the car was good. Then we'd be putting front wing in throughout the race. Well, without that adjuster, we couldn't put any more front wing in. So we were kind of set throughout the day. So I felt like we had a car to battle for a podium with, but there was only so much we could do with the tools. But at the end of the day, even a little hampered, Andretti Autosport gave me one heck of a car. So big credit to them and the Group 1001 guys.
Well, it's a great team effort today, and of course he aided in some ways by letting Alexander Rossi through to go for the victory. Robin?
Marco Andretti, good run. You got up to third for a while, kid, but Alexander Rossi was dominant all day, and he really gave you guys a lot of credit for helping him set these cars up.
Yeah, I mean, okay, but, you know, I was really focused on myself. He did a great job. It ended up being a track position race. And I cost myself 6 by trying to have a go at Newgarden. But I guess I'd rather go down swinging. But, you know, it was a bummer. I think we were about a 5th or 6th place car. But, yeah, congrats to Alex. And thoughts are with Wickens and his family right now for sure.
All right, good job. Best Pocono run for Marco, but he was dominant a few years ago. Lee Diffie.
Robin, thanks so much. As the top 3 celebrate on what has been a lengthy day here in Pocono. When we come back, we'll wrap it up. Remember that NASCAR on-car performance from Bristol coming up after we wrap things up. There is a happy group of Andretti Autosports crew members, that's for sure. Alexander Rossi, back-to-back wins, Mid-Ohio here in Pocono, his second 500-mile race victory, in addition to the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500. Quite the day here in Pocono as we take you to the unofficial results. We know Rossi powered Dixon the podium. Really solid day from Sebastian Bourdais. Look a little further down the order. Well done, Charlie Kimball. It wasn't a great weekend for Carlin, but Charlie turned it around. Frustration there for Simon Pagenaud. Matthias Lace got his best career result, finishing 11th behind Ed Carpenter. So congratulations to him. So, we got a lot to talk about in the wake of this race, and considering this is 1 in 3. So from here to Gateway, and then straight up to the Pacific Northwest to Portland, a week off, and then finishing the season off. What's on your mind heading to Gateway?
Totally about Rossi. I mean, the run that he's on right now, just again thinking about the way he won today, the way he won Mid-Ohio, the way he won Long Beach, totally dominant, crushed the competition. What does that mean for the next 3 races? I think we're in for a heck of a championship battle.
Once he gets a sniff and a look at the front, he goes, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He's the guy that's on the move right now. But, you know, Townsend and I were talking off camera, and it's been a long, emotional day for everybody involved, everybody on the teams, the fans, the whole community as a whole. We're all wishing Rossi Robert Wickens good luck. We don't know the details yet, but we know he's going to be okay.
So we just got a note that obviously, as we told you, Robert was taken to the Lehigh Valley Cedar Crest Hospital in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Orthopedic injuries, and he is still undergoing evaluation. If you're wondering what we're talking about, this was pretty frightening stuff. Early in the race, after an initial start, then there was a restart, and this was on the first flying lap. Tried to move on the inside of Ryan Hunter-Reay. There was a slight contact there, and as Hunter-Reay's car went around, Wickens just climbed all the way up into the catch fence, and the debris went everywhere. So there was Wickens, there was Hunter-Reay, there was Sato, there was Fittipaldi, his teammate James Hinchcliffe involved as well. It was a pretty frightening scene. James Hinchcliffe sent us a note saying that he had his hands up in the cockpit to get him off the wheel, and whatever the debris was that came into the cockpit cut the tops of his hands. No broken bones, just pretty banged up and swollen, but he just has some bandages on there. So no further details other than the orthopedic injuries to Wickens, and we'll find out more obviously in the coming days, but good news for Hinch as well.
Yeah, good news for Hinch and the rest of the guys to get out of there and have a chance to fight again next weekend in St. Louis.
All right, it's a busy time in the series, and as Alexander Rossi continues his celebrations, we are going to take you to last night's NASCAR race at Bristol. We joined the race just past the halfway mark with Joey Logano in the lead, and it's coming back to green. See you next week in St. Louis.